Hey everyone, welcome back. Chapters 1041 through 1060 of the previous episode. In this segment, Qinmu enlists Cripple and Old Ma to replicate the Hall of Fragrance to rescue South Deity's trapped soul. Seeking to alter history, Qinmu boards the ghost ship, partnering with Wei Suifeng to master Celestial Venerable Ling's unchanging divine art and travel back to the Dragon Han era. He befriends Luo Xiao, a master of creation, and they are joined by the disguised incarnations of the Celestial Emperor and Grand Emperor. After Qinmu slays the five-element star sovereigns, the group reaches the sealed ancestral court. Deep inside its minds, a resurrected divine king Gongyun betrays and violently strikes down both emperors. If you're able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story of Tales of Hurting Gods audio series. Chapter 1061, The Death of Luo Xiao. Qinmu tried to sense the sacrificial altar outside of the ancestral court time and time again. Yet he failed time and time again. There was a force disrupting his consciousness in the void. Cold sweat came from his forehead. The disruption came from the mine. Dahong was clearly destroying his reverse summoning. Suddenly, he felt that the disturbance was gone. He became rejuvenated instantly as his consciousness finally established a connection with the sacrificial altar outside of the ancestral court. Qinmu was pleased, and he immediately utilized the reverse summoning divine art. His vital qi and consciousness mixed together to utilize the sacrificial altar outside. At the same time, he vaguely heard melodious yet pitiful singing. It was as if an abandoned lady was singing by the river while walking into it before slowly disappearing into the ice-cold water. He looked back and saw a splendid-looking empress holding Dahong while walking towards them. Qinmu felt absent-minded as the ancestral court disappeared, and he heard the sound of flowing water. The view in front of him changed, and a river stream appeared in front of him. Plain fog covered the river. A sad lady was walking into the center of the river, and her body was slowly absorbed by the river. She was humming a melancholic song in which one couldn't understand the lyrics. Illusion. Qinmu immediately utilized his consciousness, and he furiously shouted, "Consciousness illusion! Who dares to trick me? I am the Grandmaster of Consciousness Illusions." He heard a lady's voice gently whispering, "I am its ancestor." Qinmu clenched his teeth and used the Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, Great Overarching Supreme Consciousness, Boundless Calamity Sutra, and all of his consciousness divine arts in an attempt to break the sudden illusion. Yet, he felt that his body and primordial spirit were out of his control, continuing to perform the reverse summoning divine art. He grew closer and closer to forming a connection with the sacrificial altar outside. Qinmu's forehead was covered with cold sweat. Divine King Gongyun's consciousness illusion had invaded his corporeal body, forcing him to leave there together with them. He attempted to break it, but Divine King Gongyun's consciousness was above him. She had a secure advantage over him. The reverse summoning activated, and the void swayed. Another sacrificial altar came from deep within the void. Light flashed. Qinmu clenched his teeth and fought against Divine King Gongyun's consciousness divine art. The river and the lady in it disappeared and reappeared again and again. In one moment they were clear while in another they became blurry. The pitiful singing went away, then got closer again as it crushed Qinmu's consciousness again and again. Suddenly, the lady's voice sounded in Qinmu's ear. "Are you Mu Qing? The consciousness divine arts of the later generation truly are powerful. Perhaps we will meet again in the future, if you aren't dead." The voice grew further away as the illusion disappeared. The lantern light became clear around him as the carriage appeared on the sacrificial altar outside the ancestral court. The lantern light was the type found on the Celestial River Navy's ships. Innumerable ships surrounded the place, their flags fluttering, and countless soldiers and generals of the celestial heavens stood on the sacrificial altar. Next to the Celestial River Navy was the Southern Sect Army. After they entered the ancestral court, the armies entered the place too to hunt them down. They stationed themselves outside the sacrificial altar to try and trap them. Luo Xiao drove the void beast towards the siege to try and break out. He hollered, "Brother Mu, follow me. We shall kill our way out of here." Countless troops activated their formations to trap them, while countless divine weapons and divine arts flew from the ships and bombarded them. Even more divine soldiers and generals sieged the sacrificial altar, rushing towards it. Qinmu looked around and failed to find Divine King Gongyun and Dahong. To that primordial divine king, no amount of soldiers could keep her down. After all, even Qinmu's consciousness couldn't break her consciousness illusion. She could enter and exit the Celestial River Navy and Southern Sect Army freely. Now that the female divine king had left with Dahong would face endless torture and humiliation. Will Gongyun be Celestial Venerable Gong in the future? Qin Mu thought. His gaze looked at the countless gods and devils rushing towards them before falling on Luo Xiao, who was trying his best to break free. Luo Xiao was trapped. The Celestial River Navy and Southern Sect Army had already set an inescapable trap. Even Qin Mu would find it hard to escape. Luo Xiao. Qin Mu used his consciousness and rushed towards him. Yet, his consciousness was breaking under the power of countless divine arts and divine weapons. Don't take the Void Beast back to the Great Void. The Void Beast wasn't tamed by you but by the Grand Emperor. He purposely handed it to you. Don't take it back. Countless divine weapons rose, and complete darkness blocked the sacrificial altar entirely. Yennefer looked at the scene with a pale expression after she hurriedly raised her lantern. She hastily said, "Master, we won't make it if we don't leave now." Qin Mu's consciousness was hit again. He still couldn't reach Luo Xiao's side with his consciousness. Yanea. Qin Mu didn't try again. He closed his eyes and gently said, "Extinguish the light." Yennefer blew out the lantern. Yet, the divine weapons and divine arts light made the sacrificial altar bright. They still couldn't leave and return to the ghost ship. Yennefer the dragon Qilin, and the 6 heavenly dragons looked at the divine weapons and divine arts bombarding them with despair. They couldn't help but close their eyes. "Wherever I am, Yudu is here," Qin Mu said gently. Swoosh. Endless darkness dispersed from him. It soon shrouded the sacrificial altar. The darkness disappeared as quickly as it came. Soon, the darkness was dispersed by the divine weapons and divine arts. The carriage on the sacrificial altar, and Qin Mu, the dragon Qilin and Yennefer who were on it, disappeared one by one. The waves of the celestial river rumbled. Water faintly went through the heavens in years. Then, a ghost ship appeared suddenly and leaped down from the water and onto the celestial river. The flag fluttered, and it had the words Feathered Forest sewn on it. Wei Suifeng stood on the front of the boat. He looked at the heavy mist ahead, turned around and said, "Brother, you were gone for a long time. What did you experience?" Qin Mu walked out and quietly looked at the mist on the water. He thought about his experiences for quite a long time before he spoke. "I experienced history. That's the way it is." Wei Suifeng understood him and leisurely said, "History won't change just because of your interferences and experiences. All of your hard work is a part of history. I experienced it myself." Qin Mu went to his side, and they looked out while holding onto the side of the ship, seeming as if they wanted to see through the fog of history. Wei Suifeng experienced more. A plain feeling of control fell in his Dao heart that prevented him from being as unrestrained as before. "Brother, where do you want to go next?" he asked. "Next stop." Qin Mu's gaze was faint. He said while being visibly calm, "I want to find South Deity Vermilion Bird. I haven't met her yet, but I still have to find her. Can this ship go back to an even more ancient era? I want to see her in the first year of the Dragon Han era." "No," Wei Suifeng said. "Unchanging substance can only allow the ship to go as far back as the era in which it was built. Can't go to eras before that. That's because there was no such boat then. It's the same for Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art. The Celestial River Mist can only take you to the era after Celestial Venerable Ling was born. She can't do anything about prior eras. The ship was built around 1,000 years after the first year of the Dragon Han era. The oldest era you can go to is the one you just went to." Qin Mu lightly nodded and said, "Thus, let's stay in the Dragon Han era." Wei Suifeng looked at him and asked, "I see that you're slightly depressed. What's wrong?" "I met a brother. He was honest and sincere, yet I couldn't save him." Qin Mu said quietly, "I knew his end and I tried to change his fate again and again. However, again and again I found out that his end was destined. I'm wondering where he is now and what dangers he'll face. I'm still thinking about whether he'll go mad when he meets me again. Maybe he'll hate me for lying to him." The ship floated on the river and was about to leave the mist behind. Wei Suifeng hastened him, saying, "You should move now. Lift your spirits. You are Celestial Venerable Mu." Qin Mu rejuvenated himself and got on the carriage. Wei Suifeng went forward and held the leash. He looked up and said, "You are tired after your travels. I should allow you to rest here, but I can't. We became one with the ship. We became unchanging substances. The longer you stay here, the more likely you are to be assimilated. By then you won't be able to leave. In the end you'll be like us, wild ghosts of time and space." Qin Mu's gaze fell on his face. He calmly asked, "How many more times can I use it?" "No more than 5. Wei Suifeng said, "You will be assimilated during the 6th time. By then we'll be doomed to eternal damnation. Brother, you must cherish these chances. After these chances, I'll send you back to eternal peace.
Jinmu nodded.
The carriage drove off the ship and into the mist. Outside of the sacrificial altar at the ancestral court, Luo Xiao experienced countless attacks. He escaped time and time again from the siege of the Celestial River Navy and Southern Sect Army. I wonder how Brother Mu is. He escaped into the river, groggy-minded and about to die. He could barely hold on. His corporeal body was about to die. He had escaped there by relying on his conviction. He wanted to go back to the Great Void to tell his people about the prophecies. He crawled onto the Void Beast's back and felt death approaching him step by step. I must return alive. This is our last hope. His gaze was blurry. The death of his corporeal body slowly made him blind. He could use his third eye to observe his surroundings, but it was blurry. The young master of creation felt enemies coming again. He drove the Void Beast away with the last bit of his consciousness. In the end, he faintly saw a ship approaching him on the Celestial River. The Void Beast ran out of energy too, and it collapsed on the surface of the water. The ship stopped and a young man came from it. Who are you? Luo Xiao heard his voice asking. I am Yun. Others call me Celestial Venerable Yun. The young man said. Your injuries are too serious for me to save. What last wish do you have, brother? Celestial Venerable Yun. Luo Xiao felt himself grabbing onto his wrist with his ice-cold hand. 2 lines of tears fell from his eyes. They were cold too. His heart had stopped. His body was cold. However, he remembered the first prophecy. Celestial Venerable Yun, I will tell you where the Great Void is. Bring me there and meet my people. My consciousness is about to die. It will be awakened there. Luo Xiao stared at him, yet his eyes were grayish-white. I will dig out my third eye and give it to you. It's an origin stone, a keepsake of my people. They will believe you when they see it. What about your body? Celestial Venerable Yun asked. The Celestial River Navy and Southern Sect Army are hunting me down. They won't stop until they have my body. Luo Xiao stood up and raised his palm, coalescing his last bit of consciousness and digging out his eye. He held it in his hand and told him where the Great Void was, then bowed and said, Please, Celestial Venerable Yun. He ran out of breath as he stood on the Celestial River. Celestial Venerable Yun looked at him, stunned. He received his Grand Primordium Divine Stone and said, I promise you, warrior. Luo Xiao revealed a smile and fell on his side. His body was washed downstream by the Celestial River's water. Celestial Venerable Yun returned to the ship with the Divine Stone. The Void Beast followed him onto the boat and squatted down quietly. Celestial Venerable Yun glanced at him, shook his head, and treated it as Luo Xiao's mount. After a few years, Celestial Venerable Yun finally found the Great Void. He entered it and found some honest masters of creation. He retrieved the Grand Primordium Divine Stone from Luo Xiao's eyebrows and gave it to the chiefs. The masters of creation received him politely. They held a large-scale worshipping ceremony to make Luo Xiao's consciousness into a spirit ancestor. He's a hero. Celestial Venerable Yun met a cute girl that was a master of creation too. She worshipped Luo Xiao and Celestial Venerable Yun greatly. Only a heroic master of creation can tame a large void beast like that. She was small, though she was taller than Celestial Venerable Yun. She watched the void beast that followed Celestial Venerable Yun into the Great Void. She delicately said, When I grow up, I want to be a master of creation like spirit ancestor Luo Xiao. What's your name? Celestial Venerable Yun looked at her pure smile and was caught off guard. Langvu. You're pretty. Yep, everyone says that. The waves of the Celestial River turned as if the Celestial River was the long river of time. Sometimes the waves were violent and fast, while sometimes they were calm and slow. Celestial Venerable Yun's boat went along the Celestial River. He interacted quite a bit with the Great Void's masters of creation, and learned a lot of primordial history. His chest heaved like the Celestial River. Primordial history was too interesting, but it was also treacherous. Danger was everywhere. He couldn't help but think too much about it. He recalled the beautiful face of Donghua too. A blaze was ignited whenever he thought about her. Donghua then was full of youth and mesmerizing energy. She was pure and innocent too. He was enthralled upon seeing her. Unfortunately, he could only suppress his feelings, for humans were more important to him. There won't be peace unless the Grand Emperor and Celestial Emperor are eliminated. He looked calm, yet energy and passion filled his eyes. His deep wisdom was hidden beneath his calm exterior. The Great Void will be a shelter for humans. If we fail, we need a place to hide. If Luo Xiao's 3 prophecies come true, then I should think about how to deal with the Grand Emperor's invasion of the Great Void. The torrent hidden in his gaze became faster and faster. On the celestial river, high waves hit his boat and lifted it. When the boat was on top of the wave, celestial Venerable Yun's clothes fluttered with the wind. Beneath him was a vast empire filled with slow rainbow clouds that his eyes took in. This was his era. He was determined to be the trendsetter of this chaotic era, to be the one to lead humans to glory never seen before, to be the one that left behind the greatest mark in history. He was going to bring forth the death of the Grand Emperor and Celestial Emperor. The era of the ancient gods would end at his hands. The Heaven Alliance would also fracture at his hands. Those that overthrew the ancient gods would replace them as the new rulers. Yet, Celestial Venerable Yun knew none of that. He looked at the mountains surrounded by clouds, his chest filled with heroism. A large wave fell, and the carriage left the fog and reappeared in the Dragon Han era. It was just that times had changed, and they didn't know how far they were from the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens. In that era, Celestial Venerable Mu's shocking accomplishment started a revolution. However, not many people knew about what Celestial Venerable Mu did. Qin Mu calmed himself and changed his appearance back to Mu Qing. We don't know which year of the Dragon Han era we're in. Unfortunate. Even Big Brother doesn't know which year of the Dragon Han era the ghost ship stopped at. Qin Mu stood up and said to Yenner, "Yenner, hang the lantern properly. The waves are big. Don't let it be extinguished by the waves." Yenner nodded and went to hang it properly, saying, "Master, can I see my mother this time?" Qin Mu smiled and said, "As long as nothing goes wrong, we should be able to. Relax, once we see her we can set up the trap. Even if Celestial Venerable Hu kills her, she won't really die." He put his hands behind his back as he watched Yenner hang the lantern. He was filled with confidence. Yenner cheered and went to feed the dragon Qilin and the 6 dragons diligently. She also fished out the tiny earth count in the dragon Qilin's ears to feed him spirit pills. The tiny earth count sat down and hugged a large spirit pill to chew on it. The boats went around on the celestial river. They were bustling with activity. Qin Mu looked out after pushing open the windows and saw that there were way more boats on the celestial river than in the first year of the Dragon Han era. Humans were enjoying more prosperity too. Qin Mu also saw many human gods driving ships on the celestial river. It really is good for the people that Celestial Venerable Yun rules the world. Qin Mu smiled and thought, he should be Celestial Emperor Yun by now, right? It's unfortunate that I couldn't see him when I went to the Dragon Han era last time. I might be able to meet him this time. We only met once at the Jade Pool meeting of the first year of the Dragon Han era, but we never talked in detail. He was suddenly stunned. It was weird that in his will for his family, he mentioned that Celestial Venerable Yun never met Celestial Venerable Mu after that. He could only use Brahma Buddha's technique to disguise himself as Celestial Venerable Mu, and use his identity to do things. Could it really be that we never met each other after?
Qin Mu shuddered.
Could it really be true that the both of them could only look at one another from afar throughout history? That would be a sorrowful reality. Dragon Pi, let's go to the humans' Heaven Han Celestial Heavens. Qin Mu's voice came from within as it faintly said, "I want to see how my old human friends are doing." The dragon Qilin responded and whispered to Yenner, "Cult Master is weird. He always used to call me Fatty Dragon. Now he calls me Dragon Pi instead, my real name. How weird." Yenner couldn't help but say, "How can you be so smart for important things but be so dumb for small things?" Fatty Dragon is a childish nickname, while Dragon Pi is a proper name. He thought of you as small and immature previously, so he called you Fatty Dragon. Now that he feels that you're mature and grown up, he calls you by your proper name. That's the same for parents and seniors. They will call you by your proper name once they feel that you've grown up. Poo-poo nonsense. Cult Master isn't raising me like I'm his son. No? Who made you food? Who taught you techniques? Who doted on you? The dragon Qilin was in a daze as the tiny earth count laughed. The dragon Qilin's head drooped in a depressed manner. My human rearing scripture might be in vain. My Tao heart is going to collapse. The carriage moved towards the celestial river. The humans' Heaven Han Celestial Heavens was built in front. Qin Mu was excited. Maybe I can see Celestial Venerable Yun this time. Maybe he'll be at the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens. The Heaven Han Celestial Heavens was way larger than before. When observed from afar, it appeared luxurious and glorious. The original Celestial Heavens was still there, but it was small. The human gods had built many palaces around it, and attracted even more celestial river tributaries to lift them. Qin Mu looked at it and saw many boats sailing out of the tributaries. It was bustling with activity. Gods flew up to the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens from below, and left trails of light in the air. Celestial Venerable Yun ruled very well, as expected. Qin Mu was filled with glee as he ordered the dragon Qilan to stop. They halted a passing boat. It was loaded with cargo, and it was likely heading to the other heavens via the celestial river to sell goods. Gods guarded the boat, and they came to inquire about why they were stopped. They saw how extraordinary the heavenly dragon treasure carriage was, and didn't dare to be slow. Qin Mu walked out of the carriage and asked, "Brother, which year of the Dragon Han era are we in?" That god smiled and said, "I don't know the specific year. However, I do know the year of the Heaven Han celestial heavens. This year is the 100,000th year since Celestial Emperor Yun ascended to the throne. If you were early, you could have seen the ceremony, but unfortunately you're late. It has been 100,000 years since Celestial Emperor Yun ascended the throne?" Qin Mu was shocked. If Celestial Venerable Yun ascended to the throne in the year that the Heaven Han celestial heavens was built, then he would be late by 100,000 years. "You seem to be from a faraway place, right? Judging by your travel-worn appearance, you should have been traveling for quite some time," that god said. When the celebration was held, Celestial Emperor Yun announced something big, but unfortunately, you missed it. Qin Mu asked curiously, "What was it?" "The first emperor's throne realm in the world," that god excitedly said. Celestial Emperor Yun became the first being to cultivate to the emperor's throne realm. Even the ancient Celestial Emperor ordered people to send gifts. On that day, the Heaven Han celestial heavens was bustling with activity. Earth Count, Heaven Duke, Mother Earth, and even Celestial Empress sent gifts to congratulate our emperor on becoming an emperor's throne being and opening the first emperor's throne technique in the world. Qin Mu got excited as well and praised, "Good, that's good." He was able to comprehend the emperor's throne realm before the gods in a mere 101,000 years. He's truly an unrivaled genius.
Yanu was perplexed.
Taking 101,000 years to cultivate to the emperor's throne? Unrivaled genius? Master seems to not know that people of the founding emperor era took less than 1,000 years to reach the emperor's throne realm. How can Celestial Venerable Yun be called a genius for taking more than 100,000 years to do the same? She was confused. She didn't know that the later generations had experience from countless people before them, so their cultivation was successful. In Celestial Venerable Yun's era, although the realm existed, no one had reached it before. Not only that, but there were no other techniques in this era for one to be inspired by. Everyone, even the leaders of the half-gods, had to start from nothing and cultivate with trial and error. It was as if one was figuring out paths in the dark by touching. What was even more horrifying was making mistakes. If one made a mistake in one's technique, sometimes they had to restart the whole process. If one cultivated to the Jade Capital Realm and was in the midst of entering the Numinous Sky Realm when they found that they had made a mistake when entering the True God Realm, they would have to rework and modify all of their techniques from the True God Realm to the Jade Capital Realm. However, what if one found a mistake when opening divine treasures? One had to completely overturn their previous techniques. Thus, it was hard to improve on techniques in the Dragon Han era. Everyone was searching in the dark. It was trial and error. Hence, the corpses of people that died could probably fill an entire heaven. It was such trial and error of the previous generations that allowed people of the later generations to not make mistakes in their cultivation and be more straightforward with it. Being the first to open an emperor's throne technique and cultivate to the emperor's throne realm was a monumental achievement by Celestial Venerable Yun that demonstrated his superiority. "Guest, we still have trading to do and can't stay for long." The god guarding the merchant ship commented, "It will probably take me a dozen years to return. By then, I will also be a guest that's travel-worn." Qin Mu laughed and waved goodbye to him. The carriage drove to the front of the Heaven Han celestial heavens, and the dragon Qilan stopped it in front of the southern heavenly gate. Yenner took down the lantern and followed Qin Mu and the others into the Heaven Han celestial heavens. It was very conspicuous of them to carry a lantern around during the day. Qin Mu looked around. The people of this era already had a lot of attainments in the arts. The buildings were beautiful enough to enthrall people with their ancient beauty. Qin Mu had done some research into this, so he slowed down to look around happily. "Yuan, why have you returned so soon?" A familiar voice appeared, and Qin Mu looked towards it. He saw Celestial Venerable Yu, who had several gods walking with her. She grumbled, "Didn't you say that you were heading to the Dragon Han celestial heavens to file a complaint to the ancient Celestial Emperor? Celestial Venerable Hao has been invading our land, and his half-gods ate many of our gods too. We have fought countless times on the front lines. With this complaint we must—" "Why did you morph into Celestial Venerable Mu again?" She suddenly noticed Yenner, the Dragon Qilan, and the weird people that the 6 heavenly dragons had morphed into around Qin Mu. She became stunned and looked at Qin Mu. Qin Mu gently said with a smile, "It has been a long time, you." Our last separation feels like it was yesterday. Are you well? Celestial Venerable, you had a hard time believing him while looking at him. Her footsteps became light as she walked towards him. She examined him again and again. He looked slightly haggard, but otherwise he looked the same. It was as if the last time they had met was yesterday. Yet, his gaze became more sunken, as if he had experienced many things. His aura also changed to become more reserved. It has been 100,000 years. She muttered gently. It wasn't yesterday. It has been 100,000 years since you left? Celestial Venerable Mu. I know.
Qin Mu smiled.
What was 100,000 years to you was a mere day for me. Celestial Venerable, you forced herself to not stop as she pulled him towards the celestial heavens. She smiled and said, After you left, someone discovered your secret. You know who it was? It was Sister Ling. She was very happy, and her voice became gentle and light. Sister Ling said that someone brought her future hairpin to the era, so her hairpin disappeared. I couldn't help telling her that it wasn't Celestial Venerable Yun pretending to be you. She was excited and searched for you for a long time, but she couldn't find you, which caused her to be disappointed for quite a while. Qin Mu's heart was all fuzzy when she held his hand to find Celestial Venerable Ling. Soon, Celestial Venerable, you reached Celestial Venerable Ling's residence. It was a mess with papers containing all sorts of runes and words scattered all around. Outside of those things, there were many ponies in the garden too. They rode bamboo rods without their feet touching the ground. They bounced around while checking the manuscripts on the ground. Be careful, don't anger these little things. Sister Ling carelessly put them together while testing creation divine arts. These ponies grew on the bamboo rods, and Sister Ling has them check for errors in manuscripts. They don't take their jobs seriously, so they just randomly take some and claim that there are errors. Sister Ling calls them rod spirits, and they are ferocious. Don't bother using logic with them, as they just beat people up. Celestial Venerable, you cheerfully said. Sister Ling, quickly come out. See who's here. Celestial Venerable Ling wasn't in the garden. There were only ponies jumping around while riding the bamboo rods. A heavenly dragon curiously asked, Doesn't it hurt for them to jump around like that? Another heavenly dragon asked, Hurt? Where? Qin Mu took out Celestial Venerable Ling's peachwood hairpin, and he heard Celestial Venerable Ling's voice coming from a side room. She was furious. Which D*Ned being did this? Who stole my hairpin? Oh my god! The room suddenly flew open. Celestial Venerable Ling stood in it with her gaze firmly on Qin Mu. Ling, I have returned. Qin Mu calmly said, Here's your hairpin. Celestial Venerable Ling stood there silently, only recovering after a while. Suddenly, this maiden, who didn't care about her appearance, rushed forward and took her hairpin from Qin Mu. She kicked Qin Mu to the ground and attacked him ferociously. The rod spirits riding the bamboo rods rushed forward too. They also beat up Qin Mu until bones began to snap. Celestial Venerable Yu Yener and the others were dumbstruck. Meanwhile, the dragon Qilin napped on the ground and pretended not to see anything. You stole my hairpin. Who let you steal my hairpin? Celestial Venerable Ling hollered while beating him. Who let you slip away and return sneakily? Do you know how bitterly I waited? Qin Mu curled up on the ground while hugging his head, begging for mercy. Celestial Venerable Ling didn't care, continuing while furiously saying, Do you know how tough it was on me all these years? After you left, everyone said I was wrong. Only I knew that I was right because you are my proof. She began to cry as she continued on with her venting and beating. Everyone said I was crazy. Even Yun, and you thought I was wrong and that I could never succeed. I wished for you to be by my side so badly just to tell me I'm right. Yet you ran away and disappeared. I'll beat you to death. She jumped on Qin Mu and cried like a girl who had been wronged for a long time. She clutched her peachwood hairpin in one hand and Qin Mu's shirt in another, afraid he would disappear again. Others might not be able to understand such a feeling. Yet Qin Mu understood the loneliness brought forth by setbacks and misunderstandings deeply. At such a time, one only needed acknowledgement from a Dao friend to muster up some courage and continue on. Qin Mu encountered this before, and so did Celestial Venerable Ling. Qin Mu had the dragon Qilin. Even if the dragon Qilin didn't understand him, he would at least encourage him. Celestial Venerable Ling had nothing. Celestial Venerable Yu held her up, and Celestial Venerable Ling jumped on her shoulder to cry while still pinching Qin Mu's clothes. Qin Mu patted the footprints on him and said, If you didn't succeed, how could I return? I knew I would succeed. Celestial Venerable Ling insisted. Qin Mu laughed before seriously saying, You're right. I know. After a while, Celestial Venerable Ling stabilized herself and threw Qin Mu aside. She took the peachwood hairpin and looked at it repeatedly. Meanwhile, Celestial Venerable Yu dragged Qinmu away to drink tea at a clean place. It was hard to find a clean place in Celestial Venerable Ling's garden. Those ponies riding the bamboo rods were still charging at Qinmu's legs. Qinmu tried to chase them away, but he failed. Yenner led the 6 heavenly dragons to help Celestial Venerable Ling clean her room and garden and organize the papers she had written on. Yenner, this scroll is organized in a wrong manner. The dragon Qilin glanced at it and said, "It's wrong." The ponies became energetic again. They gave up on Qinmu and went after the dragon Qilin instead. They beat him up while he continued to sleep, refusing to budge. Celestial Venerable Yu looked at Qinmu, then looked at Celestial Venerable Ling, who was laughing at the hairpin in her hand. She blinked and probed. "Mu, are you really from the future?" Qinmu drank the tea and pouted his lips towards Yenner. He said, "You will adopt this girl in the future and give her the name Yenner. Her mother gave birth to her and gave her to you personally. She will feed you until you are all chubby and fat." Celestial Venerable Yu examined Yenner and said, "Nonsense. There's no way I'll be fed until I'm fat by her. Unless I sent her to you in the future." Qinmu smiled as he put down his teacup, asking, "Celestial Venerable Yun went to complain to the celestial heavens?" Celestial Venerable Yu nodded and with a faint gaze said, "Not long after you disappeared, Celestial Venerable Hao built the half-god celestial heavens upon the order of the ancient celestial emperor. It's called the Dragon Heaven Celestial Heavens. Their power rose, especially in places like the primordial realm, which has caused greater friction between humans and half-gods. However, humans are still weak, so even though we have worked together with other post-celestial races, we have still been bullied by the half-gods. It has been hard for us." Qinmu looked at her face. The once gentle and weak Celestial Venerable Yu was way tougher now. "We have worked with them and fought many times against half-gods. However, we have mostly lost." Celestial Venerable Yu smiled bitterly as she played with her teacup with her finger. "It sounds like the half-gods and the post-celestial races fighting for territory and advantages, but it's more like sharing loot. The ones sharing loot aren't us, however, but the ancient gods. We have lost more than we've won because of how unwilling we are to sacrifice to them." Qinmu's heart moved slightly. Celestial Venerable Yu continued, "Whenever we fought them and both sides amassed their armies, we would have to perform a blood sacrifice to get the ancient gods to come down and help us. Mu, you come from the later generations. Do they still do that in combat then?" Qinmu shook his head. "Guess, what did we use as a sacrifice for the greedy ancient gods?" Celestial Venerable Yu said. Qinmu shook his head and he hoarsely said, "I don't want to. When people are desperate, they can do anything." Celestial Venerable Yu drank her tea, yet she coughed as if it was strong alcohol that burned her throat. She took a while to recover before sighing. "Unfortunately, it isn't wine. Then we were desperate, for we were pushed back to the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens in the Jade Capital. Thus we sacrificed to the ancient gods," she said rigidly. "Us as gods protecting the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens, sacrificed ourselves to the ancient gods high up. We made ourselves beasts and food for them. Soon the ancient gods descended. Celestial Venerable Hao did the same. Guess what happened?" Before Qinmu could say anything, she laughed and said, "Both sides had ancient gods, and the battle had been bloody and filled with deep hatred. Everyone thought that it would become an unimaginably bloody massacre, but both sides' ancient gods actually negotiated, acting as meditators." She revealed strong mockery as she clenched her teeth and said, "They peacefully negotiated and set down a peace treaty for us to put down our hatred and to get the half-gods that were about to attack the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens to withdraw. They couldn't take it, so they protested. They only left quietly after a batch of them were eaten. It was then that we knew." The mockery became denser as she said, "We are food. The entire primordial realm is a giant breeding ground. Mu, this is a breeding ground. We are livestock bred by the ancient gods. They ate us directly in the past, but now they are civilized. They let us fight amongst ourselves so that we have to sacrifice ourselves for them to eat." She was figuratively drunk from tea as she cried while lying on the table. "What bullsh asterisk T celestial venerables? What bullsh asterisk T god emperors? What bullsh asterisk T celestial emperor Yun and celestial emperor Hao? We are all a bunch of sheep and hunting dogs. We are the sheep and hunting dogs that the ancient gods let out to graze. Mu, it has been tough for us these couple of years." Qinmu put his hand on her shoulder and gently said, "I know, but I also know that, in the future, the era of the ancient gods will end at you all's hands. They won't dare to do this again." "Really?" Celestial Venerable Yu lifted her head and looked at him with teary eyes.
Qinmu nodded.
Celestial Venerable Yu roused her spirits and fixed her hair, then forced herself to smile and say, "This tea makes me too drunk. I'm sorry for losing my composure. Don't mind me. Qinmu revealed a gentle smile. Without all of you, there wouldn't be us of the later generations. Celestial Venerable, you receive some great consolation from him. And she continued after feeling encouraged. Celestial Venerable Yun became an emperor and the first to reach the emperor's throne realm. However, the rule of the ancient gods in the primordial realm and the other worlds is still deep-rooted. Celestial Venerable Hao's aptitude is extraordinary, and he's about to reach the emperor's throne realm too. Celestial Venerable Yun is going to the Dragon Han Celestial Heavens to complain about the half-gods, and to see Celestial Venerable Hua. Qinmu's heart moved slightly. Celestial Venerable Yu looked at him and said, he wants to establish a connection with Celestial Venerable Hao via Celestial Venerable Hua. Do you know what he intends to do? Qinmu's eyes jumped as he nodded and hoarsely said, invite Celestial Venerable Hao and Celestial Venerable Hua, and even God Emperor Lang Xian and Ancestral God King, into the Heaven Alliance to overthrow the ancient gods' rule together. Celestial Venerable Yu nodded and smoothed out her hair again. Are we doing this right? Qinmu's eyes jumped again. He wanted to tell her how Celestial Venerable Yun would die because of this. He wanted to tell her how the Heaven Alliance would permanently change and become the half-gods. He wanted to tell her how it was because of their decision today that the Heaven Alliance would replace the ancient gods and become terrifying rulers. He opened his mouth, but he couldn't say anything. He couldn't tell them. The Heaven Alliance of the later generations wasn't as terrifying as the ancient gods of today. It was the best choice for humans to work with Celestial Venerable Hao. If they broke this alliance, the ancient gods era would continue, and the primordial realm and other realms would still be a giant breeding ground. A Dao friend was one that stood by one side and told them that they were right. Yet surprisingly, Qinmu found that hard to say. You guys are doing this right, he calmly said. Celestial Venerable Yu smiled. You are from the future. If you think we are right, we will definitely succeed. Thank you, Mu. She stood up and said, the garden has been cleaned. Yenner, come here. Walk around the place with your master and your lantern. Yenner appeared in front of her like a gust of wind, her eyes glowing. Sister. Celestial Venerable Yu pinched her ears and fiercely said, what? Finally, Yenner diligently woke up the dragon Qilin with the lantern. The dragon Qilin was still being beaten by the ponies as he stood up with a yawn. He shook his body to get the ponies off. Where are we going, Cult Master? He curiously asked while being chased by ponies. Qinmu looked at Celestial Venerable Yu. She smiled and said, there have been some things at the border. Some half-gods keep trying to enter our land. They seem to be looking for something. The reason I didn't follow Celestial Venerable Yun to the Celestial Heavens is so that I can find out what they are looking for. Since you are here today, Mu, let's go investigate them. Qinmu hesitated before nodding. Sure. I'm waiting until Celestial Venerable Yun returns. I'll leave after talking to him. Let's use my carriage, it's faster. Sister Ling, are you coming? Qinmu asked. Celestial Venerable Ling rushed out and gave Qinmu her hairpin before saying, of course. Wait for me. She suddenly remembered something, so she called Celestial Venerable Yu over and whispered, I haven't been out for years, so I feel somewhat timid. Can you help me groom myself? Celestial Venerable Yu didn't know whether to laugh or cry as she said, Sister, you still know that you're a woman? Don't embarrass me. If I go out like this, it'll be you guys who get embarrassed too. They went to groom themselves, but Celestial Venerable Ling had no clothes to change into there. So Celestial Venerable Yu had to go to her own residence to get some clothes and accessories. It was uncomfortable for Celestial Venerable Ling, but she exited anyway. Qinmu's eyes flashed as he complimented. Sister Ling and Sister Yu are really beautiful. Celestial Venerable Yu blushed, while Celestial Venerable Ling complained about how uncomfortable her clothes were. Her dress was too long, and her sleeves were also too long, which were hindrances. They boarded the carriage and drove towards the frontier. Celestial Venerable Yu opened the windows and looked down, saying, the half-gods have been sneaking in, as if in search of someone. I ordered people to scout things out, and there should be news soon. They came to a small border town and descended. Most of the people there were normal people, though there were a few divine arts practitioners. The Heaven Han Celestial Heavens was extravagant, while the humans of the primordial realm still lived in poverty. It was, however, still an improvement compared to the first year of the Dragon Han era, as people could maintain their livelihoods, albeit barely. One could see half-gods going around at the border. They descended, and the sky suddenly darkened. Qinmu looked up and saw a giant bird flying in the distance with green-gold wings. It blocked out the sun. The bird cried out while flying, Dahong, Dahong! There's going to be a flood. The people in the town panicked and scampered away. The large bird descended not far away from the town, looking like a large mountain. On it was the palace of a god, and a person was tied on a pole outside of the palace. His chest was exposed, and a large spear was stuck in it. He was dying. Celestial Venerable Yu was about to inquire about the situation when Qin Mu blocked her with his hand. He shook his head and said, "I recognize the people in the palace. The person on the pole isn't a good guy either. Let them be." A lady walked out of the palace with a long whip and whipped the man on the pole. The man was severely injured. After that, the lady cut meat from the man's chest with a sharp knife and forced open his mouth to force-feed him his own meat. "I've heard about them," Celestial Venerable Yu said with shock. "I've heard of this weird couple in the primordial realm. The lady will come out every day to hit the guy and torture him. I've finally witnessed it for myself." At that moment the scouting god returned. He greeted Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Ling and said, "I found out that they are looking for a man named Acho." "Achu." Qin Mu immediately became nervous. He hurriedly asked, "Which one?" The god didn't recognize him, but he replied, "I don't know. We are at the border. Half-gods and humans live together, and neither us nor the half-gods can manage this area. There are no censuses." Qin Mu's expression changed as he hurriedly said to Yenner, "Look after the lantern. Don't let it be extinguished."
Yenner was perplexed.
The lantern was Wei Suifeng's treasure, and he was the emperor of endless clouds. How could the lantern he forged be easily extinguished? Qin Mu was extremely nervous. He walked around and hurriedly told Celestial Venerable Ling and Celestial Venerable Yu, "Evacuate the people here. Move them inland far away from this place. There's about to be a terrifying occurrence here." Celestial Venerable Yu was stunned and immediately ordered people to move the humans inland. "The darkness is coming. It's coming." The darkness of that day must have come from a nearby heaven. Those half-gods found the wrong place. Qin Mu looked up at the sky. There were several heavens in it. Some powerful half-gods were flying towards them and leaving behind god light trails, like meteors streaking through the sky. Qin Mu mumbled, "Acho is actually in a nearby world, but darkness is coming, and this place will be affected. The lantern can't withstand it. Sister Yu, Sister Ling, I have to leave this place for the celestial heavens immediately. I must get there before darkness arrives and do what I have to do." Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Ling were somewhat reluctant as they said, "You want to leave when you just got here?" Qin Mu hopped on the carriage and said, "We'll still have chances to meet later, relax. I'll come back for you too. Yenna, look after the lantern. Pai, prepare to go." He entered the carriage, opened the windows and said, "Don't stay here, leave now." Celestial Venerable Ling and Celestial Venerable Yu saw how serious he was, so they knew it was something big. Celestial Venerable Ling went to him, gave him her peachwood hairpin and said, "Before you leave, return it to me." Qin Mu put it in the heart of his brows, and as soon it landed in the Qin word land, there was another one in Celestial Venerable Ling's hair. Celestial Venerable Ling smiled and whispered, "With this I can persevere." The heavenly dragons pulled the carriage into the air and used the wind to speed onward. When the carriage went by the palace on the bird, the man with blood all over his face lifted his head and shouted at the carriage, "I can't die. If I'm dead, none of you will escape." Qin Mu looked at him through the windows. He was expressionless and speechless. The lady walked out and looked at Qin Mu from afar. Qin Mu nodded, and the lady returned the greeting. "I separate my feuds and favors clearly. I'll repay you in the future." Qin Mu felt the lady's consciousness wave in his head. The carriage passed the palace and flew towards the celestial river. The man with the spear through his chest on the pole smiled. "New Xian, I feel the eruption of a powerful force in the darkness. Earth Count has reincarnated. Do you want to use this opportunity to get rid of him?" The greatest enemy of the Masters of Creation, besides the Grand Emperor and Tai Chu, is Earth Count. The lady plainly said, "Both of them as well as Earth Count are going to die. This is an excellent opportunity to kill Earth Count. Once he's gone, the Masters of Creation will be rid of their natural enemy. I can then create many Masters of Creation and repopulate the new Xian tribe. I can help you," the man gently said. "After all, we're husband and wife." It was still fine when he didn't mention that. After he did, the lady became angry and retrieved a tray from the palace with hundreds of silver needles on it. She picked one up and gently shook it, and it became a foot long. She then proceeded to stab them into his body one by one. The man cried out in bitter pain. At that moment, the lady suddenly felt something and looked up into the sky in a hurry. The man on the pole excitedly said, "You felt it too? The surging dark force. This force is coming from Earth Count. They have already found him." We can work together as husband and wife to get rid of him." The lady heard what he said, and hatred grew in her heart. She picked up the whip and whipped him crazily, causing him to be covered in injuries. The man on the pole shouted while laughing, "As long as you're by my side, I'll like it even if you hit me with 10 times the force." The lady put away the whip and looked up towards the dark wave. She coldly said, "It isn't easy to scheme against Earth Count. I'll need your real body to come forth. Where is it? Why hasn't it shown itself yet?" The man looked at her gently. "It has been quietly looking at you. I watch how you hit me. I'll never get bored of it, even if it goes on for another 100,000 or a million years." The lady beat him up again. "Bring it out." Celestial Venerable Ling and Celestial Venerable, you felt the dark wave as well. It didn't come from a place near them. Instead, it came from the heaven above them. The primordial realm had thousands of worlds hanging in the sky. Where they came from and why they appeared were mysteries to post-celestial races. They just knew that they hung there. After his travels outside, Celestial Venerable Yun once revealed that they may be worlds created by some prehistoric race. But he didn't go into detail. Suddenly, the earth shook violently, and dark devil aura flooded out of the ground. The people at the border panicked and scampered as if the sky was falling. Celestial Venerable Ling and Celestial Venerable Yu were shocked as they looked up. The heaven was like a giant devil eye emanating a devilish aura that was like tentacles. Meanwhile, the devilish aura flooding out of the ground was flooding towards that heaven, but both of them felt that it didn't come from a place underground. Instead, it came from another space and time. Yudu. There has been a drastic change in Yudu. Both of them thought simultaneously. At that moment, the dark devilish aura became denser and denser. Celestial Venerable Yu flew up and said, "Quickly, evacuate the people here." Lights streaked across the sky as they flew towards the heaven. Those were abnormally strong half-gods. On the celestial river, Qin Mu hastened them, and the carriage went straight for the celestial heavens. At that moment he saw the stars in the sky becoming brighter as they overshadowed the sun's glow. Qin Mu's heart fluttered. That was an ancient god moving their ancestral star, while flying towards them from a distant time and space. At that moment he saw several large ships dragging a gargantuan thing while flying over them on the celestial river, heading towards a heaven in the primordial realm. Now that he was far from it, it looked like a black line to him. The large object that the ships were dragging was a large god stage, where two giant portions of baleful air intertwined as if they were fled dragons. They kept on rotating until they reached the highest point of the sky. "Sacrifice my people." A low growl came from the sky. It was the voice of an ancient god. "Sacrifice so we can descend." More ships moved to the front of the carriage. They connected to form a giant sacrificial altar. Many half-gods pushed out numerous life forms of all sorts onto the sacrificial altar. The blood sacrifice began, and they evaporated in a crimson aura. They cried out to the heavens bitterly as their corporeal bodies shriveled at a visible rate. In the sky, crimson lights dragged the stars closer and lower. Old gods formed weird shapes and descended from the heavens and onto the sacrificial altar along the light. They opened their mouths to breathe in deeply, and countless limbs rose and entered their mouths. Extremely weird-looking ancient gods laughed and hollered, "Let's go and meet that Acho." The carriage drove by, and the dragon Qilin looked back and probed, "Cult Master." "Ignore them," Qin Mu said apathetically. "Darkness is coming. Hurry. We can't waste this opportunity. We only have 5 chances to go back to the past left." The dragon Qilin nodded and said, "However, those ships have blockaded the celestial river, so it'll be difficult." "Ram through them," Qin Mu said. The ancient gods on the sacrificial altar noticed them, and their gazes fell on the carriage. The half-gods on the ships also looked at it restlessly. "This carriage seems familiar," said an ancient god with the head of a wolf. He was Wood Wolf of Kuei Star Sovereign. An ancient god with the head of a chicken said, "I think Celestial Emperor has one of these. In the celestial heavens, people of prestige have carriages like these. However, Celestial Emperor has 10 heavenly dragons, while the 4 deities have 9. An ancient god with wooden horns and a scaly head that resembled a crocodile said, "Powerful officials have 8, the crown prince has 7. However, I have never heard of a carriage with 6 dragons pulling it." "Jiao Mujiao, I've heard of it. 100,000 years ago, that fiend had 6 heavenly dragons pulling his carriage. The 5 elements star sovereigns." Qin Mu opened his window and revealed half of his face. He looked towards the front, not towards the 28 ancient gods. He plainly said, "Yes, it's me. If you don't hinder me, I won't hinder all of you. Open the path." Their gazes fell on his face, and they were hesitant. Suddenly, Wood Wolf of Kuei waved his hand and hollered, Open the river. The ships moved towards the sides and the carriage drove on. The ancient gods on the sides looked at Qin Mu in the carriage. Suddenly an ancient god laughed. Celestial Venerable Mu, your battle at the Celestial River back then shocked the world. I wonder if you can still fight. Later on you struck out a few times but you lost a few times too. The carriage came to the center of the fleet, and Qin Mu meditated, remaining silent. Gue Jinyang smiled and said, You disappeared 70,000 years ago. I heard that you lost to Celestial Venerable Hao, which made you disheartened. 100,000 years have passed, and your opponents from back then have become famous strong practitioners while you are still the same. Did you improve? Qin Mu opened his eyes and said plainly, I have cultivated to the true God realm from the God realm. Laughter came from all around him. Others are already at the numinous sky realm. Celestial Venerable Yun even reached the Emperor's throne realm. Yet you are still a true God. Qin Mu closed his eyes again. I'm different. Laughter came again. The carriage went on. Suddenly Jing Muhan grabbed the carriage and said, Come down and play, Celestial Venerable Mu. Qin Mu remained in the carriage without moving. Jing Muhan's hand was about to grab the carriage's canopy when a door appeared in front of it. The heavenly door of heaven and earth. His hand went through the door, and when it came out it was mere bones. He screamed and wanted to extract his hand, yet he was pulled into the door by its force. Beyond it he became a skeleton. He shook and fell into the celestial river before being washed away by its currents. Silence surrounded them. My true God realm is different from theirs. Qin Mu's plain voice came from the carriage. The carriage drove on and out of the siege of the ships. The remaining 27 ancient gods watched the carriage move away from them in horror. A divine art more terrifying than earth count, someone hoarsely said. On the carriage, Yenner's gaze flashed as she whispered, Master, they always say that your cultivation realm is low. Can we stay in the past to cultivate for a few thousand years? Qin Mu looked out at the celestial heavens. Time doesn't matter for cultivation if one is like a tree without roots or water without its source. Yenner didn't understand him. Without the soil of reform, one can only cultivate to become a normal emperor's throne, regardless of how long one stays in the past. Qin Mu took back his gaze and leisurely said, By then I would be like everyone else, fit to fight to become heroes, like what Celestial Venerable Hao and Celestial Venerable Hui did. However, I wouldn't be supreme, nor would I be able to win against the 10 Celestial Venerables. It's only by absorbing the results of Eternal Peace's reform that we can surpass them. All of my achievements come from Eternal Peace's reform, not the past. In the 5 years since I left Eternal Peace for the Celestial Heavens, I haven't had any results of the reform. Qin Mu sighed and said, This trend becomes more obvious when we return to the past. Ever since he left the primordial realm for the Celestial Heavens, his pioneering of paths, skills, and divine arts had become less and less. Every time he returned to Eternal Peace, he would learn something new. This was the effect of the soil. Eternal Peace's reform was still ongoing, but he had left the soil of reform. Every time he returned was to obtain nutrients. It was the way of the celestial heavens. If he stayed in the past era, which was obscure and unknown to him, and where paths, skills, and divine arts were still being developed, any divine art he brought there would be shocking to the people. What would Qin Mu rely on for growth then? His goal was to be better than people of the past, not become one of them. The celestial heavens got closer and closer again. The 27 ancient gods took the god execution stage and god execution mysterious knife to the heaven Acho was at. Wood Wolf of Kuei said, It's not good for us to reveal our identities this time. Bring this divine knife and execute him. We will hide and watch over you. If you do well, the crown prince will reward you greatly. In that heaven, Acho had already reached a dead end. Many half-gods stood on a high cliff, carrying his kids and saying to Acho below, Kneel down. Meanwhile, in the celestial heavens imperial garden, Celestial Venerable Yun walked behind the ancient celestial emperor. His trip there was to complain about Celestial Venerable Hao officially. After the court session, Celestial Emperor got him to stay and walk with him through the imperial garden so that they could talk intimately. Yun, you are in charge of the humans, and you should know that it isn't easy to be an emperor. I'm in charge of the entire universe and all the worlds. Celestial Emperor felt his head ache, so he rubbed his temple before sighing. Humans are but one of the countless races of the worlds, and you all have already caused turmoil. Just now, you quarreled so badly with Hauer in court. I'm facing a dilemma. I have to care about the old brother's will, the loyalty of the half-gods, and also the troubles of post-celestial lifeforms like you. It isn't easy being the Celestial Emperor. Celestial Venerable Yun smiled. I know that it's hard on you, Emperor. Celestial Venerable, how is after all? Celestial Emperor glanced at him. Celestial Venerable Yun understood it and shut up. Suddenly, Great Sun Sovereign came quickly, bowed and reported, Emperor, this is bad. Celestial Emperor frowned and lectured. What's bad? The heavens now are prosperous and peaceful. Everyone is living happily. How could there be bad things? Great Sun Sovereign frantically said. The 28-star ancient gods came and borrowed the god execution stage from the celestial heavens. They are likely going to cause big trouble. I was observing the heavens under your order, and today I found the half-gods doing something strange. They seem to have a secret deal with the 28 gods. This. He clenched his teeth and said with guts, this probably involves the Crown Prince Qi too. Celestial Emperor's face sunk, and Great Sun Sovereign shivered and felt the murderous intent of Celestial Emperor. You entrusted me with such a great responsibility, so I had to say it, Emperor. Please forgive me. Great Sun Sovereign continued. Earth Count has reincarnated, and I suspect that Crown Prince Qi is in cahoots with the 28 gods and a bunch of other old half-gods to kill Earth Count and take over Yudu for himself. Crown Prince Qi is ruthless. If he succeeds, he won't be able to hold back his ambition, and one day, he might aspire for the throne and threaten you, Emperor. How dare you? Celestial Emperor hollered. Great Sun Sovereign, isn't it too unrestrained of you to sow discord between my son and me? Great Sun Sovereign trembled and protested. I was merely thinking for your empire, Emperor. Earth Count contributed greatly to your empire, Emperor. Crown Prince Qi attempting to get rid of him is an attempt to cut off your wings, Emperor. Scram! Celestial Emperor lifted his finger and coldly said, Scram! You will withdraw too. Celestial Venerable Yun bowed and withdrew with Great Sun Sovereign. Great Sun Sovereign was angry and he said, if he doesn't trust me, there will probably be trouble brewing in the chambers of concubines soon. Celestial Venerable Yun looked at him and said, how could the Emperor not trust you? Star Sovereign, the Emperor was angry at you because you knew too much. Great Sun Sovereign didn't understand him, so he humbly asked for an explanation. Could Celestial Venerable Yun please enlighten me? Celestial Venerable Yun said, you are in charge of monitoring and reporting big things in the heavens to Celestial Emperor. You are only supposed to report things without making your own theories. If you only observe and don't theorize, you can still live. If you conjecture, I'm afraid that you might die mysteriously. He walked towards him and said, in this celestial heavens, the more you know, the more danger you find yourself in. You are in the most dangerous position. Be careful. Great Sun Sovereign was stunned. He lifted his bird leg and caressed his chin. This Celestial Venerable Yun is a B** starred with illogical speech. I'm loyal to the Emperor. Who dares to scheme against me? The carriage finally reached the southern heavenly gate. At that moment a shocking wave came, and instantly darkness shrouded the primordial realm's sky. Qin Mu's heart pounded as he looked back quickly. A heaven had split open, and a giant with the head of a cow and the face of a tiger roared in anger. On that day, Yudu's great Tao invaded the primordial realm as chains, locking that giant in place, as well as the destroyed heaven. At the same time, the great green bird flew towards Yudu with the palace. The man strapped on the pole laughed. That's right. We'll go to Yudu and try to take Earth Count's corporeal body. Once we have him, we can have control over the lives of all post-celestial lifeforms and half-gods. Shut up. Speak again and I'll rip you apart. The carriage rushed towards the southern heavenly gate, and the army of the celestial heavens guarding it didn't bother to block them as even more gods and devils flooded the celestial heavens. There was panic and crying everywhere. The army of the celestial heavens looked at the primordial realm stunned. Their gazes rose as they looked at Earth Count's body, which was stepping on a gargantuan heaven while rising and becoming bigger. A giant cauldron rotated beneath him. It was a cauldron forged from the celestial heavens god execution stage in countless lives. It had a name, it was called Slaughter. Countless half-gods scampered towards the celestial heavens while crying out loud. The 27 ancient gods had to show up and receive Earth Count. They called out saying, Earth Count, they are merely fooling around. Why be angry? Wood Wolf of Kuwei said to the scampering half-gods, are you lot not coming to apologize? On that day, the 28 ancient gods in the 4 poles that the ancient gods guarded became the faces of the slaughter cauldron. Acho came to the celestial heavens' southern heavenly gate with endless fury. The army of the celestial heavens was deployed, and they rushed towards this growing yet sorrowful devil god. At the same time, Qin Mu's carriage rushed into the celestial heavens amidst the chaos, and went straight to South Deity Vermilion Bird's celestial palace. He looked back as the army of the celestial heavens became corpses before even approaching Acho. That day was like the doomsday of the gods. Even powerful ancient gods and half-gods had their souls dispersed when they came into contact with Ah Chow's power. The celestial heaven's power was almost fatally decimated. The ugly man shackled by the great Tao dragged a dark heaven world into the celestial heavens. Magma and devilish aura mixed in the world beneath him to form floating lava everywhere. Qin Mu briefly saw Ah Chow's giant punch heading towards the southern heavenly gate. The southern heavenly gate collapsed as the punch went through it. In front, countless soldiers of the army of the celestial heavens flooded towards the southern heavenly gate, making it hard for the carriage to go forward. Yet, in the next moment, Earth Count's punch caused a space storm that lifted them with countless palaces. Countless people were ripped apart in the storm. Their primordial spirits dissolved. Their souls went down towards the fiercest weapon in the world. The power of the slaughter cauldron became more and more terrifying. The carriage was lifted up too as they flew above the vermilion bird celestial palace towards the jade capital. Yennefer hollered and utilized her divine art to protect the carriage. The heavenly dragons did the same to fend for their lives. They saw that the lantern hung on the carriage was on the verge of being extinguished. Qin Mu immediately went to protect it with his hand. Endless darkness flooded into the celestial heavens like a dark tide, engulfing everything that it went past. Even the lanterns forged from suns and luminous pearls forged from moons of the celestial heavens were extinguished by this dark devilish aura. It was too ferocious, and everyone submerged in it was instantly hit and assimilated before being swallowed by the slaughter cauldron to become one of its faces. Qin Mu also heard a roar of endless anger. Uzacho. The carriage crashed into the jade capital, and it took them hundreds of miles before they managed to come to a stop. Qin Mu was about to go back to the vermilion bird celestial palace, when he saw that the darkness had engulfed it. He shivered. If he rushed into the darkness then, Wei Suifeng's lantern would probably not be able to withstand Ah Chou and extinguish. Then, he wouldn't be able to see South Deity Vermilion Bird at all. The darkness swept through like a furious ocean, engulfing everything. It was outside of the jade capital colliding with it. The capital of the celestial heavens radiated brightly, and surprisingly, it blocked Yudu's devilish aura. Qin Mu gave a sigh of relief and ran towards Celestial Emperor's chambers of concubines with the gods of the Jade Capital. This was because the slaughter cauldron was spinning and heading towards them from Ah Chow's hands. It crushed the gates of the Jade Capital. From the cauldron, countless faces flew out and released bitter cries. They flew everywhere before rushing towards the fleeing people. Qin Mu rammed around with the carriage. Some royals even jumped onto it, wanting him to help them escape. Qin Mu raised his sword and cleaved many royals. At the back, the violent space storm came again. It was another strike from Ah Chou. The heavenly dragon treasure carriage was lifted by the storm again, as countless palaces behind them were torn apart by the storm. When the heavenly dragon treasure carriage landed, everything suddenly became calm. Qin Mu looked back and saw the numinous sky hall behind them. Their imposing ancient gods stood up to block the storm that Ah Chou stirred. Qin Mu's pupils contracted as he saw the ancient celestial emperor's figure. The ancient celestial emperor was radiating brightness that was glaring. Even Ah Chow's Yudu devilish aura couldn't enter. That's great. Soon Ah Chou will be forced into Yudu, and I can sneak into the Vermilion Bird Celestial Palace to see South Deity amidst the chaos. Qin Mu relaxed and thought, however, I probably can't use this carriage again. It's too eye-catching. It's hard to act with Mu Qing's face too. I have to change my face. He jumped out of the carriage, took the lantern and said, Yennefer Fatty Dragon, this is the celestial heavens, and it will be hard to do things with too many people. I'll collect you all into the heart of my brows. Before they could respond, the eye in the heart of his brows opened, and a light shot out and shone on the heavenly dragon treasure carriage. The dragon Qilin, Yennefer the dragons and the carriage disappeared. They were kept in the Qin word land. Qin Mu groaned and utilized the writings of creation. His appearance changed to Luo Zhao's as he thought, You wouldn't blame me for using your appearance, right, third brother? At that moment he suddenly saw Celestial Venerable Hao. Qin Mu was stunned as he sneakily hurried towards the chambers of concubines. Why is he sneaking around in his own home? Qin Mu was confused when he saw Celestial Venerable Yun too. Qin Mu was pleasantly surprised. Celestial Venerable Yun was sneaking around too as he followed Celestial Venerable Hao into Celestial Emperor's chambers of concubines too. Qin Mu's heart fluttered as he followed them sneakily too. In front, Celestial Venerable Hao met palace maids that were guarding the palace. Suddenly, his figure expanded as he pulverized them. He soon took out a white banner, waved it around and took their souls. Son of Heaven Yin's treasure. Qin Mu thought while observing the scene. Celestial Venerable Yun, following Celestial Venerable Hao, took out a yellow joss paper. which he pasted on himself. His appearance changed immediately.
Jinmu blinked.
Celestial Venerable used treasure. They expected Cho to cause havoc here and were prepared. It seems they want some treasure from the celestial heavens. What do they want to steal? In front, Celestial Venerable held his little banner, and he ruthlessly killed every god and devil that he saw. He was already very powerful. Although he hadn't reached the Emperor's throne realm, he was, after all, the son of Celestial Emperor and Yuanmu. His bloodline power was grand, and his combat capabilities were astounding. The chambers of concubines fell into chaos at that moment. Powerful gods had already gone to the Jade Capital to defend against Cho. The remaining ones weren't his opponents. They died before they could even see Celestial Venerable Hao's face clearly. Their souls were all kept in the little white banner forged by Son of Heaven Yin. Celestial Venerable Hao went on while Celestial Venerable Yun followed. Not long after, Qin Mu, who was following them, was stunned. He saw a treasure hall. The Hall of Fragrance. His heart violently pounded, which the two in front felt immediately and at the same time. Celestial Venerable Yun immediately hid, while Qin Mu morphed into a shadow on the ground as if he melted. Celestial Venerable Hao continued on after seeing nothing. Soon, Celestial Venerable Yun appeared and looked around. He found nothing too, so he followed Celestial Venerable Hao. Qin Mu appeared from the shadow and looked at the Hall of Fragrance with a complex expression. The Hall of Fragrance suppressed the remnants of Celestial Venerable Yu's soul. However, it was the most valued Great Hall of Celestial Emperor, so there were too many seals and talismans. Even Cripple couldn't enter, which meant he couldn't either. Qin Mu inhaled deeply and continued following Yun and Hao. Soon, he encountered the second treasure hall out of the 72 Clear Sun Hall. Celestial Venerable Hao came to the hall, which was guarded by two Qilin ancient gods. They looked serious and sinister. Celestial Venerable Hao walked up to them, and they raised their claws and hollered. "This is an important ground, please halt, Celestial Venerable." Celestial Venerable Hao said with smiles, "I'm here to check on it upon my father's order. Please let me in, seniors." "Order of the Emperor? Do you have his decree?" Celestial Venerable Hao retrieved it and said, "Please look." They were ancient gods bred by ancient divine mountains. They looked at his decree, yet Celestial Venerable Hao suddenly flipped it. It was a mirror at the back, and light exploded from it, which shone on the two Qilin ancient gods' primordial spirits. They were immobilized. Celestial Venerable Hao rose and killed the two of them before taking their primordial spirits. It was then that he felt relieved. He came to the hall and mumbled, "Mother said that those two treasures must be here. Chow's attack on the celestial heavens is the perfect opportunity for me to steal them. With those treasures I can rule that primordial species." There were countless seals in the front of Clear Sun Hall. Celestial Venerable Hao clearly had the guidance of Mistress Yuanmu on how to break them. He backed off, waved around, and his vital chi became swimming dragons and flying phoenixes that flew towards the seals. Instantly, countless chains appeared around Clear Sun Hall to seal it. Celestial Venerable Hao's gaze flashed. He was nervous as he broke all sorts of seals. After a while, he finally broke all of them. At that moment, his figure became a beam of light as he rushed into the hall. The seal immediately closed. As soon as he entered, Celestial Venerable Yun went forward, groaned, and imitated Celestial Venerable Hao's actions. He did everything that Celestial Venerable Hao did. The way to break Clear Sun Hall seals was complex. Even geniuses wouldn't be able to learn so many ways to break the seal in such a short time. Yet, he was able to learn all of it and repeat it perfectly. He was the first being to reach the Emperor's throne realm. His Purple Heavens Blue Skies technique was originally good at imitating others' ultimate arts. His descendant Yun Jianli evolved it, and absorbed the essence of reforms throughout the eras to prevent the technique from becoming obsolete. After Celestial Venerable Yun broke them, the seal opened, and he too rushed into the hall. As soon as he entered, the seal shut again. Qin Mu came to the hall and thought about their ways of breaking the seal. He shook his head. "I didn't remember it completely, but luckily, I have the mirror I forged from the painting path to do it for me." He flipped his palm and took out a mirror. It cast light and displayed the ways they broke the seal. Where the mirror shone, Clear Sun Hall's seal continued opening, which allowed Qin Mu to enter too. In Clear Sun Hall, Qin Mu fell into nothingness. Clear Sun Hall had no floor, for it was a vast space. He hastily flew up to prevent himself from falling down. Then he noticed all sorts of treasures floating in Clear Sun Hall. They gave off all sorts of treasure light and were obvious. Outside of treasures there were palace lanterns. They floated in the space and were as tall as a person. They suppressed the treasure light. Strangely enough, The lights given off were very orderly. Qin Mu realized something. These palace lanterns are restraints guarding the vault's treasure. The treasures floating in Clear Sun Hall were large and pasted with talismans. Nearby, Qin Mu saw a giant ball around 60 feet tall that was so smooth that he found no flaws. What is this? He wanted to look at it closely, but he heard strange heartbeats coming from it. Qin Mu was surprised. This isn't a ball, it's an egg with life in it. Before he could reach the front, the palace lanterns glowed. Many lights coalesced and shone towards him. Qin Mu's figure flashed to dodge the lights. He changed his body thousands of times. It was there that the body techniques Cripple imparted to him shone. Qin Mu came to that ball's side and placed his palm on it. He instantly felt the heartbeat within becoming a grand Tao voice, and it was as if someone was reciting it within. Could it be an ancient god? Qin Mu was perplexed. Weren't the ancient gods born during the primordial era? Why was there one still not born yet and sealed there? At that moment, the light in front became clear as it shot around chaotically. Instantly, all of the palace lanterns were activated. Billions of lights illuminated the palace and made the place almost impossible to hide in. He wasn't sure whether it was Celestial Venerable Yun or Celestial Venerable, how that triggered the palace lanterns that sealed the treasures, and caused this chain reaction that instantly put everyone inside in danger. Qin Mu instantly shrank his body to become a small speck of dust, then bounced around the ball to avoid the light. Soon, a light shot out of the heart of his brows, which shone on the nearby lanterns. He stored one of them in the Qin word land. The heart of Qin Mu's brows glowed and continued shining light upon the place. The nearby palace lanterns were swept away to form a safe space. Far away, the explosive waves of divine arts came, and palace lanterns were extinguished one by one. Qin Mu's heart fluttered. Celestial Venerable Yun was already an emperor's throne realm being by this time. Celestial Venerable Hao is also a being in the numinous sky realm. Their power is above mine, and these lanterns can't do anything against them. Soon, the lanterns were all extinguished, and all that was left was the treasure light given off by the treasures of Clear Sun Hall. Qin Mu let out a lot of light from the heart of his brows to store the large egg similar to that of the ancient gods before flying towards another treasure. It was a treasure mountain. The heart of Qin Mu's brows glowed again, and he took it before reaching it. It was made out of something like jade that he hadn't seen before. However, it should be important since it was kept in Celestial Emperor's vault. Could they be treasures scraped from the ancestral court by the ancient Celestial Emperor? He took a winding river as well. It was forged to be small, only around 50 to 60 feet long, yet it was heavy. Even when he stored it in the Qin word land, Qin Mu felt the heart of his brows sinking. What is this river? Qin Mu shuddered as he felt the pupil of his third eye falling downwards from being crushed. However, he had no time to think. Soon Celestial Emperor would beat Acho back to Yudu. He had to take all that he could during this time. Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Hao had the same idea. The treasures in Clear Sun Hall decreased in number. Qin Mu saw Celestial Venerable Hao taking out a bag made out of snakeskin and stuffing treasures in it. It was clear that it was a great treasure. Celestial Venerable Yun had a sack that wasn't normal. Qin Mu felt the aura of a Taotai from it, so it should be a treasure forged from Taotai skin. In the hall, treasure light kept on disappearing, dimming the place. Qin Mu hastened his looting when he suddenly saw an extremely obvious jade pillar. He was stunned and almost shouted. It was the one that was in Tao Ancestors' Guardian Pavilion that could imprint all sorts of ancient god imprints, and even create Celestial Venerable Yu's form. Could that jade pillar be an extraordinary treasure? He rushed forward but saw Celestial Venerable Hao reach it first. He placed it in his bag. Their gazes crossed. Qin Mu flipped his palm, while Celestial Venerable Hao rose and grew in size. Qin Mu entered the path with divine arts and unleashed grand overarching heavenly completion. At the same time, Celestial Venerable Hao waved his banner. Qin Mu's body wavered as it was useless. Celestial Venerable Hao's vital qi exploded, and a celestial palace appeared to defend him from Qin Mu's divine art until it broke. Qin Mu quietly whispered about how unfortunate it was. At that point, Celestial Venerable Hao's divine arts weren't as good as his despite his cultivation depth surpassing his. His corporeal body was very strong too. He was likely maturing. One fled east while the other fled west. They didn't fight. Instead, they chose to continue looting. Time was tight, and Celestial Venerable Hao realized that it wouldn't be easy to take down Qin Mu. Qin Mu had the same idea, so they decided not to fight. Clear Sun Hall became darker and darker, and the only light left was some scattered light. At that moment, Qin Mu's eyes lit up, and he almost cried out of joy. He saw some broken pieces of the Grand Primordium Origin Stone. the Grand Primordium Origin Stone. The Grand Emperor's treasure was being kept here by Celestial Emperor. Qin Mu flew towards it, morphing into a beam of divine light. At the same time, he saw two other divine lights rushing towards the place. They were Celestial Venerable Hao and Celestial Venerable Yun. However, Qin Mu soon found out that their targets were different from his. He looked at where they were going and he shuddered. He saw that Celestial Venerable Yun's target was a small sacrificial altar, while Celestial Venerable Hao's target was a large seal. The Grand Emperor's seal and the Grand Emperor's sacrificial altar. Qin Mu's consciousness flew out and rolled towards the Grand Primordium Origin Stone. He picked it up and split his consciousness into two. One went after the seal, while the other went towards the sacrificial altar. At the same time, Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Hao's divine arts flew towards him simultaneously. Qin Mu's scalp turned numb, and he immediately took out the round egg that was suspiciously like an ancient god to shield him. Their divine arts burst forth and blasted Qin Mu and the egg. At that moment, Celestial Venerable Yun noticed Qin Mu's face and was confused. "Luo Xiao, aren't you dead?" His heart shuddered, and he was blasted by Celestial Venerable Hao's move since he wasn't paying attention. Celestial Venerable Hao laughed as he took the Grand Emperor's seal. With it, he immediately went for the Grand Emperor's sacrificial altar. Celestial Venerable Yun rushed forth. Although he started his mad rush later, he was faster. They almost reached the Grand Emperor's sacrificial altar at the same time. Suddenly it disappeared. Their hearts shuddered, and with a cry from Celestial Venerable Hao, the Grand Emperor's seal that he was holding onto also disappeared. What the hell? Such a thought appeared in both of their heads. At the same time, terrifying commotions came from outside the hall as Celestial Emperor struck out against Ah Cho. Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Hao immediately decided to leave, so they rushed out of the hall. It would be too late if they left later. Earth Count's reincarnation Ah Cho wasn't Celestial Emperor's opponent. He would be defeated in one move. By then they would definitely die a horrible death if they were stuck inside Clear Sun Hall. They held great ambitions and wouldn't let themselves die there. The moment they rushed towards the door, Qin Mu stabilized himself and flew to where the seal and sacrificial altar disappeared. He was holding them. When he stored the ones that he had in the heart of his brows, the seal and sacrificial altar inside Clear Sun Hall suddenly reappeared. Qin Mu grabbed them and rushed outside of the hall. The great violence in the celestial heavens caused South Deity Vermilion Bird to come out of her palace. She looked up and saw the celestial heavens dragging a giant world while circling Ah Cho, who was walking forward with countless great Dao shackles on him. She was insipid as she said, "The Crown Prince has gone overboard with this." However, without his condonation, he wouldn't dare to do such things. She coldly laughed as she looked at the power center of the celestial heavens. "What are you planning, Emperor? When you formed the celestial heavens, you already gathered us God's power and made it your own. Are you still worried about us?" She quietly said to herself, "Yeah, Earth Count and Heaven Duke are too strong. They aren't controlled by you. As long as you have their weaknesses, you can control them, right? Heaven Duke has been taught a lesson by you, and now it's Earth Count's turn." She quietly said bleakly, "Soon it'll be Mother Earth's turn, then Heavenly Yin's. Then it will be us, the four deities' turn, right? However, I won't let it happen without doing anything." On that day, the celestial heavens' weather was treacherous. Ah Cho's attack on the celestial heavens caused the fall of ancient gods and half-gods. The army of the celestial heavens suffered countless casualties. In the end, he reached the Jade Capital and was beaten down by Celestial Emperor, falling back to Yudu. Celestial Emperor reached out with his palm and caught the baby girl falling from Earth Count's shoulder. At that moment, Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Hao escaped from Clear Sun Hall. They left with their loot without batting an eye at one another. Soon Qin Mu, who was one step behind, also rushed out of Clear Sun Hall. He changed his appearance along the way to dodge the palace maids of the Chambers of Concubines, so that he could sneak into the Jade Capital. Soon he put on Luo Zhao's appearance to escape the city. At the same time, the green bird rushed into Yudu, but it was too late. Divine King Gongyun saw Earth Count waking up. He opened his eyes in hell and looked up towards the celestial heavens. No emotions flowed from his eyes. Earth Count wasn't looking at them, yet he lifted his palm, and the Ghost River's torrent swept towards the bird and the palace on it. His gaze was on Celestial Emperor's hand, which had his daughter in it. Divine King Gongyun felt a chill down her spine. She was going to block it when the restraints on Dahong burst open. He got out and became a large bird that flew up. He laughed and said, "Relax, my lovely wife. Earth Count won't dare hurt you with me around." Dongyun defended against the Ghost River's attack, and her soul was shaken from the hit. At that moment, a powerful force came in to block the Ghost River. It was the Grand Emperor's real body striking out despite not appearing. Dongyun knew that she had to rely on the Grand Emperor's help to escape Yudu. The daughter of the most powerful devil god was born in the world of the living and not in Yudu. Celestial Emperor's voice came from far above, yet it was clear when it entered Earth Count's ear. The daughter of the Netherworld is filled with the void. Thus we shall call her Wei Su. Yudu's devil aura is too dense, so we shall let Su stay in the celestial heavens. What do you think, Dao friend? Earth Count looked down and saw his reincarnation, Cho plunging into further darkness without stopping. That's a wise decision, Emperor, he said. Celestial Emperor smiled. In the Jade Capital, Crown Prince Qi saw the scene where Celestial Emperor fought against Cho and felt a chill down his spine. It seems that I currently lack the power to get rid of my father. However, my father won't tolerate me now that I struck out against Earth Count and caused such a big ruckus. I have to rebel now. I still have the half-gods, my mother, and many ancient gods on my side. I might not lose to father. At that moment, Qinmu walked through the celestial heavens, quickly moving towards the Vermilion Bird Celestial Palace. It drizzled. The rain came from the celestial heavens Rainbringer to wash the blood from the streets. The gods who didn't die were transporting the corpses of the dead. Cho Earth Count used Earth Count's real body's power and caused severe damage to the celestial heavens. Yet, Qinmu didn't feel bad, for he was heavily rewarded for his gamble. He didn't ask for riches, but he got the Grand Emperor's Grand Primordium Origin Stone. One could even use the pieces to piece together a complete Grand Primordium Origin Stone. Now, he only had to see South Deity Vermilion Bird and get one of her treasures. That, or he could tell her to split her soul for reincarnation so that she could avoid the impending death. He sped up. When he went by the Pankavidia Celestial Palace, there was a figure behind the palace doors who plainly said, "It has been a long time, Luo Xiao." Qinmu's heart shuddered, and he turned around to look at him. "It has been a long time, Celestial Venerable Yun." Celestial Venerable Yun gave a cold humph and entered the Pankavidia Celestial Palace before saying, "Enter, please. This place is the Celestial Palace of the Five Elements Ancient Gods. They already died to Celestial Venerable Mu, so this place is empty." Qinmu suppressed his glee and followed him, planning to show his real self when he unintentionally saw Celestial Venerable Hao behind him. Qinmu's heart fluttered, and he restrained himself. They entered the Pankavidia Celestial Palace, and Qinmu came to Celestial Venerable Yun's side. "I saw you die personally. You died on the Celestial River, with your corpse washed away by it." Celestial Venerable Yun suddenly stopped and said, "You couldn't have lived, yet I've seen you again." Qinmu felt Celestial Venerable Hao entering too, and he said, "I was saved." Celestial Venerable Yun said, "You entrusted me with your eye and consciousness. I saw your people there, and I saw you becoming a spirit ancestor. I don't know how your consciousness became a spirit ancestor, while your corporeal body is still alive." Qinmu said, "We are different. The death of our soul isn't real death for us. Real death is the elimination of consciousness." "Perhaps." Celestial Venerable Yun nodded and said, "I went to your people and saw their cultivation techniques. It was peculiar and different. Your people don't know how to scheme and lie. Their interactions rely on consciousness contact. With a light touch, people can understand each other like clean soil. I go there sometimes for tranquility, but you are different, you will lie to me." He suddenly felt something. He clearly felt Celestial Venerable Hao sneaking into the Pankavidia Celestial Palace. His consciousness might not be as strong as Qinmu's, but it wasn't weak either. His consciousness was strong enough to be felt. The great void Qinmu told him about was something yearned for, but it was destroyed by the Grand Emperor. He was also not the honest Luo Xiao that he was pretending to be. "I died on the Celestial River. Where's the beast that was following me?" he asked. Celestial Venerable Yun said, "I sent it to the Great Void."
Qinmu sighed.
The Grand Emperor knew where the Great Void was. His consciousness waved as he transmitted information into Celestial Venerable Yun's head. "I can't return anymore. Please give the Grand Primordium Origin Stone to my people, and help them build the Void Bridge in Permitha world. You should know the origin and use of the Grand Emperor's seal, and the Grand Emperor's sacrificial altar. I'll lend them to you. Return them to me in the future." He quickly turned around and swept his gaze towards where Celestial Venerable Hao was hiding, unleashing his consciousness. Celestial Venerable Hao was stunned as everything in front of him disappeared. All that was left was an imposing ancient Celestial Emperor. Celestial Venerable Hao felt a chill down his spine. He instantly realized that it was an illusion, so he bit his tongue and spat out fresh blood. His blood contained the bloodline of two great ancient gods. It instantly melted Qinmu's consciousness illusion and broke Qinmu's consciousness divine art. At the same time, Celestial Venerable Yun had a Grand Primordium Origin Stone, Grand Emperor's Seal, and Grand Emperor's Sacrificial Altar with him. He flipped his palm and stored the three objects. He then looked again, but Qinmu had left. Celestial Venerable Yun's gaze was filled with confusion and doubt. This Luoxiao was different from the one who had died on the Celestial River. Although his consciousness was also strong, his personality was different. Celestial Venerable Hao came and looked around. He was frustrated at being unable to find Qinmu. I know the third person in the hall is you, Celestial Venerable Yun, Celestial Venerable Hao leisurely said. Celestial Venerable Yun plainly said, I know one of them is you. Celestial Venerable Hao's gaze flashed as he curiously said, Who was the other person? I can't believe that there's a third person besides us who can precisely seize the opportunity of Acho causing chaos in the Celestial Palace to loot the hall. This makes me curious. There are countless extraordinary people in this world. Most of them are legendary figures. Did you stage the battle between Crown Prince Qi and Earth Count? Beautiful. Celestial Venerable Yun sincerely praised. Well played, Celestial Venerable Hao. You managed to take advantage of Earth Count, Crown Prince Qi, and Celestial Emperor's vault. Celestial Venerable Hao smiled and leisurely said, I merely took advantage of the situation. I may be the leader of the half-gods in the primordial realm, but the leader of the half-gods of the other worlds is the Crown Prince. I'm but a small official like you. I just had to get some half-gods to tell the Crown Prince that Earth Count had reincarnated and that the chance was here. He would naturally strike. Besides, he revealed a playful smile. Celestial Emperor doesn't want the Crown Prince to live anyway. The Crown Prince's ambition has grown to be too big, and he got too close with the other ancient gods. After this, Crown Prince Qi has to rebel, and he'll die from it. No one will be able to fight for the position with you after. However, no matter how good your scheme is, it's still small in scale. Celestial Venerable Yun looked at the numinous sky hall and said, You can't go up against him. Celestial Venerable Hao felt the same as he stood with him to look at the numinous sky hall. He whispered, Every time I see him, I always feel too weak to fight against him. I know how terrifying he is. The more I know about him, the more I know about how invincible he is. He only has one weakness, and if he didn't have it, then... He shivered several times. Celestial Venerable Yun's gaze flashed. The only one worthy of my gaze in this era is you. You seem to come from a revered background, but you are an illegitimate child with no status. You experienced a strike that eliminated your Tao heart too. Yet you stood back up and voluntarily gave up a seemingly extravagant and revered position in the celestial heavens to become a peasant in the lower bound. He put his hand behind his back and said, I see endless ambition and desire from you. You befriended the half-gods Celestial Venerable Hua, and Son of Heaven Yin. Even God Emperor Lang Xian and Ancestral God King have many praises for you. In every war between the Dragon Heaven Celestial Heavens and Heaven Han Celestial Heavens, I saw your wisdom too. There are only two heroes in this world. He lifted his hand to point at Celestial Venerable Hao before himself. Celestial Venerable Hao laughed before saying, We have a common enemy. You need my power and I need your wisdom. You and outside of Lan Yuqian and Celestial Venerable Mu, you are the person I'm most impressed with. I can bring the most powerful half-gods, while you can bring the most powerful humans. We need careful planning. Celestial Venerable Yu nodded as the figure of that female master of creation named Lang Xian appeared in his mind. He said, I have an idea. We just have to wait for several more years until you all reach the Emperor's throne realm. I'm prepared to strike after that. He only has one weakness and we only have one chance. We have to be perfect in this. With a deep gaze he said, Before this I have to deal with someone else first. Another powerful being that is as strong as your father. Celestial Venerable Hao's heart fluttered from such a thought. Who may that be? The Grand Emperor. Celestial Venerable Yun turned around saying as he left, We have to get rid of him to ensure that he doesn't stir havoc after we get rid of your father. Otherwise, the Grand Emperor will become another Celestial Emperor, and all we would do is work for him. The Grand Emperor must die before your father. Celestial Venerable Hao watched him leave and couldn't help praising him. Celestial Venerable Yun really is my strongest enemy. What I thought of, he did too. What I didn't think of, he did. However, the final winner is determined by power. He walked out of Pancavidia Celestial Palace while saying, The power of humans is worlds apart from the half-gods. After Crown Prince Qi dies, the half-gods will be under me. I'm more powerful, so the final winner will be me. Qin Mu went to the Vermilion Bird Celestial Palace, but South Deity Vermilion Bird wasn't there. The gods watching over the place said, South Deity left after the chaos to visit North Deity and East Deity. Qin Mu frowned and asked for paper and ink from the god. He wrote a letter, gave it to the god and said, when she returns, give it to her. Tell her that her brother was here, and ask her to do what is written on it. The god kept the letter. Not long after, the looting of Clear Sun Hall became clear to everyone. Celestial Emperor was furious, and he ordered Great Sun Sovereign to lead the star gods to lock down the celestial heavens and interrogate and search everyone. Even the celestial palaces of the 4 deities weren't spared. Earth Count, Heaven Duke, Mother Earth, Heavenly Een, and Celestial Empress Sister all had celestial palaces in the celestial heavens, which were searched. The celestial heavens' impenetrable web was spread open. Dense lights floated everywhere in the sky. Those were light chains formed by Great Tao. Under such conditions, it was almost impossible to leave the celestial heavens. I wonder if I can bring things from the past into the future?
Qin Mu groaned.
According to the rules of unchanging substance, one could do that, but he was unsure about it. At that moment, the army was about to search the place he was at, so Qin Mu decided to extinguish the lantern. Sometime after the ruckus was over, South Deity returned to her celestial palace after visiting the other 3 deities of the ancient gods. The god watching over the door gave her the letter and said, Empress, a youth with large eyes and thick eyebrows came forward with a lantern claiming to be your brother. He left behind a letter. Strangely, he had nothing to write with and asked us for stuff. Brother? With a lantern. South Deity was confused. She took the letter and entered, thinking, those 2 old slick-B asterisk stards of North Deity are right. Celestial Emperor originally ordered the 28 ancient gods to take over from us and rule the 4 poles. Now that they have died to Earth Count, the 4 poles have no gods ruling over them, which means chaos will occur. It'll be our chance to return. She sat in the palace nest, her red clothes covering it. The entire place was splendidly crimson and red. It moved like a flame and it made her look very fair. South Deity put the letter aside, thinking, it may have seemed like Celestial Emperor had a benign intention in building celestial palaces for us, but in reality, he wanted to take away our power and trap us in the celestial heavens like prisoners. There must be a big revolt for us to leave this place, something bigger than Ah Chao's assault. When one is far away from authority, the powers that be won't intervene. As long as I return to the poles, I'll be free and no longer restrained by the celestial heavens. Sorrow covered her face. Where would a revolt larger than Ah Chao's assault come from? After a while, she faintly sighed and picked up Qin Mu's letter. She saw a seal on it with the imprint of a vermilion bird. She was shocked. The imprint was lively, and the runes on it were vermilion bird markings. Even people that knew her well wouldn't be skilled in so many vermilion bird Great Tao runes. Yet, the person who left the letter casually left behind a near-perfect vermilion bird imprint. Only she could break the seal. If others touched it slightly, the letter would ignite and turn into ashes. The person who left it behind claimed he was my brother? Could it be? She broke the seal and opened it. The words inside jumped up and slowly burned in the air. The words became flames that assembled themselves. South Deity Vermilion Bird looked at it for quite a long time and read the contents. The letter became ashes by then. It really is Brother Mu Qing. South Deity's long eyes blinked and she whispered. He claims that I'll die in the future and wants me to be prepared. He gave me 2 strategies. The first is to contact Celestial Venerable You of the humans and give her a feather for safekeeping. The other is to split my soul and plan for a scheme of reincarnation. South Deity laid in her nest as her thin feet slipped out of her clothes. She thought, however, East Deity wanted me to be guarded against human Celestial Venerables like Celestial Venerable Mu, for he killed many ancient gods and is the biggest threat to us. He's right, the 5 element star sovereigns died at his hands. She was in a dilemma. She sat up and walked around. However, soon she was determined. I'll see Celestial Venerable You first. If her character is bad and this is a scheme, I shall distance myself from her. If her character is great, then I don't mind making friends with her. I do recognize that little girl, Celestial Venerable Ling. Oh right, she formed the Heaven Alliance with Brother Mu. In the same year, Celestial Venerable Yun went to the Great Void and passed the Grand Primordium Origin Stone to the Masters of Creation there and said, Luo Xiao left behind a precious stone that he claims is meant for all of you to build the Void Bridge in Permitha world. They were shocked, but they didn't question it much. Celestial Venerable Yun looked at these honest Masters of Creation and couldn't help but shake his head. It would be hard for the Masters of Creation to fight against the incoming invasion of the Grand Emperor. He saw Donghua again. This girl of the Masters of Creation was extremely beautiful and moving. Every time he saw her, peculiar thoughts would emerge in his mind. He had an idea, but he couldn't bear letting this girl be put in danger. He returned to the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens and saw Celestial Venerable Ling improving the path of creation. She created many more weird species. His heart fluttered as he asked, "Ling, can you create a real human?" Celestial Venerable Ling looked up from countless scrolls and looked at him, clearly perplexed. A perfect girl. Celestial Venerable Yun's gaze flashed as he said, "I'll take you to see her." Soon Celestial Venerable Ling saw Donghua and couldn't help but be mesmerized by her beauty, even praising her. No other girl is as fair as her, who is fairer than snow. Phoenix flutes deploy their wings and fly at the sight of her. Her skin is like that of a jade mountain, and her figure and steps are so genteel and light that no dust is stirred. Her waist is like a willow branch that can't bear the spring that is her body. Such a girl should be called Zhu Wuchen. Donghua heard it and succumbed to shyness. Celestial Venerable Yun asked, "Could you create a Zhu Wuchen with the path of creation?" Celestial Venerable Ling thought about it and said, "I can try, but it's not perfect yet. I need some time. When I perfect it and can create a creation divine weapon, I can create Zhu Wuchen." "How long do you need?" "I don't know, you have to wait." Celestial Venerable Yun had no choice. He thought about Luo Xiao again and thought, is that Luo Xiao really Luo Xiao? Or is it that Luo Xiao was not Luo Xiao but that man? Mu Qing's figure floated into his eyes. He shook his head and whispered, "No way. Ling said he's a shadow of the future, though I do hope that I can see him. I have many aspirations that I want to share with him." He looked at the carefree Masters of Creation of the Great Void in a daze as he thought, "I feel that we are similar. Why is he the shadow of the future? I have no Dao friends in this era. Why is the only one I have in the future?" He had a feeling that he and that Dao friend of the future helped each other forward despite being separated by countless years. Yet they remained so far apart. A few hundred years later, Crown Prince Qi led the 10 guards of the Celestial Heavens into a rebellion, sending the Celestial Heavens into chaos. Many other ancient gods also joined him. The rebellion came from the chambers of concubines. Crown Prince Qi, the most powerful half-god, had the bloodline of Celestial Empress and the Celestial Emperor. He had also matured, making him the most terrifying being of the half-gods. He was so powerful that he was scarier than God Emperor Lang Xian and Ancestral God King. The chaos he caused was massive too. The rebellion wasn't just backed by half-gods and the ancient gods following him. It was backed by Celestial Empress too. When he unleashed his ruins of divine art and swallowed the Celestial Heavens, even ancient gods trembled. Yet he lost still. Every move of his was suppressed by the ancient Celestial Emperor. Heaven and earth pushed him straight into the deepest depths of the Jade Lock Pass of Yudu. A cold and icy voice from high up reached Yudu. "From today on, your surname is gone. You are only left with evil and sins. From today on, you shall forever sit in the blazing flames to be tortured. From today on you are Xia Wuqi." The battle caused heavy casualties in the Celestial Heavens, more so than the chaos caused by Acho. Even Celestial Empress was banished afterward. Almost all of the 10 guards were executed on the newly built god execution stage. It went on for 100 days with countless heads being chopped off. There were so many executions, and the new divine knife was extremely ferocious. The 2 pieces of baleful air were made to be indestructible, cutting primordial spirits and corporeal bodies as if cutting melons and vegetables. Celestial Emperor picked new strong practitioners from each race to fill the 10 guards, and the elites of each race were almost all selected. The 10 guards of the past were made out of powerful half-gods. Now they were made out of gods that cultivated to the Jade Capital Realm. The power of the Celestial Heavens was transformed like that. After the chaos caused by Acho Earth Count and Xia Wuqi, the power of the old guard of the Celestial Heavens receded to an all-time low. The new era came like that, unnoticed. The Divine Treasures and Celestial Palaces system replaced the Bloodline system, and became mainstream for all races of the heavens. Before this, bloodline determined position and power. Now, cultivation determined those things. The ancient gods were able to rule the world because of their bloodlines. But after these events, the Divine Treasures and Celestial Palaces system rose up. That was the revolution of the Dragon Han era. It was quietly completed under the subtle stirring of the ancient Celestial Emperor. Those that impeded the ancient Celestial Emperor from growing stronger were ancient gods. Thus, he used the power of post-celestial races and half-gods to suppress them and their descendants. The ancient gods were weakened, but he wasn't. His rule became even more secure. On the ghost ship, Qin Mu took out the round egg that he stole from Clear Sun Hall and studied it with Wei Suifeng. Wei Suifeng knocked on it. The voice coming from it was a Dao voice. It was as if someone was speaking inside. Yet it was bizarre and hard to understand. Wei Suifeng researched it for a bit and used all sorts of God Eyes divine arts to look inside, but it was useless. It can't be an ancient god since they are all born already, and no new ones can appear. Unless it's a natural god formed from a dragon bloodline or mountain essences. Could a half-god be inside? He crawled down to listen in on the egg. The Dao voice coming from it was bizarre. The heartbeat was unique as well, sounding distant. Can I crack it open? Wei Suifeng asked. Qin Mu said, I used it to block Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Hao's attacks, and it didn't crack. Celestial Venerable Yun's realm was the Emperor's throne, and Celestial Venerable Hao's realm was the numinous sky. He also had a strong bloodline power and was about to mature. In the era that you went to, Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Hao still weren't strong enough. They weren't as strong as I am now. Wei Suifeng shouted, and countless stars shone above him. They rotated around as if they formed a sky. Qin Mu's heart fluttered. His big brother's power was far superior to that of Saint Woodcutter's. The sky spun, and with the celestial river orbiting it, it formed the peculiar scene of the celestial river drooping over the celestial dipper. Great celestial river, celestial dipper. It was something that later generations wouldn't be able to see. One could only see the true appearance of Xuandu when one was in the Dragon Han era or an earlier era. Obviously, when Wei Suifeng transmigrated to the Dragon Han era and became the leader of the Feathered Forest Guards, he saw the real Xuandu and comprehended his own techniques and divine arts. Wei Suifeng lifted his right hand, and the great celestial river celestial dipper's power fused into his hand. Using his hand as a knife, he cleaved straight down at the egg. His power was truly much stronger than the Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Hao of that era. With that cleave, the egg glowed, and suddenly, a loud ringing bell was heard by everyone on the ship. It was the sound of the universe opening and surging forth. Countless beautiful great Dao markings flew out of it, and it caused the ghost ship to be inside its dense Dao marking lights. At that moment, Qin Mu and Wei Suifeng felt the ghost ship getting rid of the state of unchanging substance. Instead, it fell into a formless groggy state where yin and yang were combined. At the same time, all sorts of complex Dao voices rang. They were bright and ear-shattering, and it sounded as if thousands of ancient gods were all reciting it at once. It sounded like the masses calling out the same bizarre yet holy name. Soon they disappeared, and the markings returned to the egg. The ghost ship returned to the state of unchanging substance. Wei Suifeng's eyes jumped, and his right hand drooped. His hand was shivering. It's broken. Qin Mu's gaze fell on the disappearing Dao marking around the egg as he asked with a serious expression. Yep. Cold sweat fell from Wei Suifeng's forehead as he said, 3 of my fingertips are broken, and my pinky bones are shattered. This egg is too tough. The round egg still wasn't cracked open. Qin Mu attended to Wei Suifeng's injuries and set his broken bones. Wei Suifeng shook his arm and looked at the large round egg solemnly saying, You saw it? What great Dao is it? Qin Mu nodded with a solemnity never before seen and said, I saw it and I heard it. This is indeed an ancient god egg with an extremely unique ancient god inside. Once he matures, he won't pale in comparison to the ancient celestial emperor. The great Dao inside seems to be a formless energy of both the living and the dead. It exerts great pressure on celestial venerable Ling's unchanging substance. Have you heard of such a great Dao, big brother? Unchanging substance met its bane for the first time. It was a divine art on the state of substance. Meanwhile, yin and yang's combination was a formless energy with no substance. It was the opposite of celestial venerable Ling's divine art. Wei Suifeng shook his head and said, I've seen most of the ancient gods' great Dao. I've even been to Dao Ancestors' Guardian Pavilion. There were no records of such a great Dao that can pressure celestial venerable Ling's divine art. I've never heard of it. They walked around the egg several times feeling troubled. However, Wei Suifeng and the warriors of the Feathered Forest Guards were excited. If they could use it to break the unchanging substance divine art, they could get out of the state of being an unchanging substance of the ghost ship and be free. Qin Mu's gaze flashed as he said, Perhaps this ancient god may be the key to rescuing you all and saving celestial venerable Ling. The ancient celestial emperor's name is Tai Chu, a name given by the Grand Emperor. Since I'm fated with the ancient god in the egg, I shall name it Tai Shi. Wei Suifeng couldn't help but warn him, saying, Brother, if this ancient god gets out of its egg, it might become another ancient celestial emperor. Qin Mu put away the egg and said, Taichu was a saint born from the Grand Primordium Divine Stone Mine, and he harnessed the power there to mature. This Taisher egg likely needs another special power to mature, such as the mine in the ancestral court. If we keep it, it can't be born, but I can study its great Tao. Wei Suifeng was slightly unnerved as he said, "Then you must remember, brother, to never take it to the ancestral court. Or else." Qin Mu nodded solemnly and soon took out all sorts of treasures that he looted from Clear Sun Hall. They were all over the deck. There were things like divine mountains and treasure mountains, which were heavenly treasures. Wei Suifeng was shocked and he cried out, "Brother, did you raid Celestial Emperor's vault? So many treasures." "Yep," Qin Mu said in a gleeful and loud voice. Wei Suifeng looked at the treasures and was moved. Such treasures were rare even with the ancient gods, yet they were all on the ship. So many treasures. He inhaled the cold air and moved to touch a dragon blood treasure tree. As soon as he touched it, it glowed. Wei Suifeng felt that it had a strange intimacy with vital qi besides the closeness one felt from being under the tree. One seemed to be able to stay in a state of comprehension at any time. What was more peculiar was that if vital qi imprinted runes on the leaves of the tree, the process would be extraordinarily likely to succeed. "You can definitely forge this tree into a great treasure." Wei Suifeng was astounded as he mumbled. "You can forge impressive treasures even with one branch, enough for a strong practitioner of the Emperor's throne to use. I went to the Dragon Han era a long time ago and even became the general of the Feathered Forest Guard, so I've seen a lot. I've seen many treasures but none as grand as these. I've only seen one that was better than what you looted from Celestial Emperor's vault." Qin Mu took out the remaining fragments of the Grand Primordium Origin Stone and searched them. He felt relaxed after making sure that there was no residue of the Grand Emperor's consciousness on them. He curiously asked, "Whose treasure could be above the collection of Celestial Emperor's family?" The Grand Emperor's Grand Primordium Origin Stone was shattered into many pieces. He gave one of the larger pieces to Celestial Venerable Yun, while he planned to forge the remaining pieces into his third eye. He tried to piece it together but he failed to make a complete one. He was likely still missing a couple of pieces. North deity Xianwu's family had a treasure that was otherworldly. Wei Suifeng talked about it and praised it. He said, "They are said to have collected many primordial treasures, forging them into a great treasure called the Glassy Sky Pagoda. I saw it once. Prince Yuming allowed me to see it. It was the best treasure in the world. No other treasure can compete with it. You stole many treasures from Celestial Emperor, but none can compare to the Glassy Sky Pagoda." Qin Mu picked up a piece of the Grand Primordium Origin Stone and sent it to the heart of his brows. Suddenly power surged forth and captured it. It entered the heart of his brows and fused with the Grand Primordium Origin Stone in his third eye. Qin Mu was satisfied and grabbed another piece of it. "The Glassy Sky Pagoda? The one that was stolen away from Prince Yuming? Is the pagoda really so powerful that even Celestial Emperor's treasures can't compete with it?" He thought about it. North deity Xianwu was made up of two ancient gods visualized by the Yushur clan, which was the Grand Emperor's clan, the strongest of the primordial era. They had a lot of resources. They probably raided Ju Yushur's vault during the battle between the ancient gods and the masters of creation. Wei Suifeng recalled when he saw the pagoda and praised it again. Truly the number one treasure beneath the heavens. If you see it, you'll be shocked too. It was extremely exceptional. Once you bow to it and worship it, it becomes the 24 glassy heavens, which makes it invincible. Qin Mu put the rest of the Grand Primordium Origin Stone into the heart of his brows, and it fused with his third eye to become one. He blinked and found nothing different, but when he utilized the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, his consciousness improved by leaps and bounds, several times faster than before. In fact, he sighed. The Grand Emperor was able to become the Grand Emperor for a reason. If my consciousness can be elevated so quickly with what is, at best, half of the Grand Primordium Origin Stone, I can hardly imagine how fast one's consciousness would be elevated if they had the complete Grand Primordium Origin Stone. Wei Suifeng was still thinking about the Glassy Sky Pagoda as he said to himself with fascination, "There are more treasures on the pagoda than the ones you stole from Celestial Emperor's vault. Brother, most of these treasures come from the ancestral court. Pick one." Qin Mu invited him to take one. Wei Suifeng snapped out of his thoughts and walked between the treasures to check their quality. However, the more he inspected them, the harder it was for him to choose. The treasures were carefully chosen by the masters of creation over a long period of time. They were exceptional. Even if one were to search the entire universe, it would be hard to find even one of them, much less in the primordial realm. Those left were probably in the hands of powerful ancient gods or half-god leaders. Wei Suifeng took a long time to pick, as he wanted everything. In the end he chose a divine mountain, explaining, "The brothers on the ghost ship followed me for so many years. When we're free we'll probably be outdated. The Jade Capital Realm and Numinous Sky Realm from back then are probably more similar to the Jade Pool Realm of today. I'll refine it to become a treasure that everyone can use to boost their power. Can you give these palace lanterns to me as well?" Qin Mu nodded, for they were the guardians of the treasures in the vault. They were useless to him, only occupying space in the Qin word land. Wei Suifeng took them and said, "They were forged with heavy treasure too. With so many of them, I can modify them to form a grand 1,000-lantern formation to protect the ship." Qin Mu put away the other treasures and looked at the feathered forest guards on the ship. They were the most exceptional talents chosen from each race. If they could cultivate in eternal peace for several years, their power would grow immensely. Their future accomplishments wouldn't be limited. Wei Suifeng glanced at him and said, "That's determined by your ability to save us."
Qin Mu frowned.
He wasn't confident about breaking Celestial Venerable Ling's unchanging substance, unless he could research the great Tao of the ancient god Taisher. "I stayed for some time under each Celestial Venerable of the Celestial Heavens. Although I didn't learn their true capabilities, I saw many Emperor's Throne techniques." Wei Suifeng refurbished the Heavenly Dragon treasure carriage for him, then blinked and said, "I couldn't learn many of them, but I copied them down. Follow my map and you shall find them." Qin Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he said, "Why wouldn't you just impart them to me? Why make a map?" Wei Suifeng shook his head and said, "It was hard for me to hide from the Celestial Venerables while being in the Celestial Heavens. I didn't know when I would die, so I hid the Emperor's Throne techniques that I collected in places I traveled to. Brother, Celestial Venerable Ling's letter is also at one of those places. After you've saved South Deity, you must head there." Qin Mu smiled and said, "Why don't you impart them to me here? Why make me go searching for them via your map?" He suddenly realized why and guessed, "Unless you didn't learn them?" Wei Suifeng blushed as he resentfully said, "Why would I not be able to? I'm just not good at learning other people's techniques. I just absorb parts of their techniques and fuse them into my Celestial Dipper technique. I'll walk my own path. If I'm going to become a saint, why would I not be able to learn them?" Hee. The smile on his face gradually became twisted. Qin Mu stopped messing with him. Wei Suifeng was Saint Woodcutter's most precious disciple. Amongst the three of them, Wei Suifeng followed Saint Woodcutter the longest, and he likely also took on his bad habit of biting off more than he could chew. Wei Suifeng was still better than Woodcutter, for his cultivation path contained 360 professions and post-celestial great das. This was also the origin of the 360 halls of the Heavenly Saint cult. It was the reason that his realm was fixed in the Jade Stage realm. He couldn't enter the God Execution stage for his entire life. With 360 post-celestial great das, his primordial spirit would be cut 360 times if it was on the God Execution stage. With his bad habit, he would probably die in wine after one cleave. Wei Suifeng was greedy too, but at least he reached the Emperor's Throne realm. The ghost ship rose out of the water and sailed within the mist of the Celestial River. "Brother, you are left with only 4 chances." Wei Suifeng saw the treasure carriage drive out of the ship and reminded him, "Don't waste your chances on saving South Deity. You can save some chances to do more meaningful things." Qin Mu peeked out from the window and waved at him. "I mostly succeeded the last time. I definitely can this time. Don't talk nonsense." Wei Suifeng was clearly nervous as he said, "I feel that you are a jinx. Every time you say that, you fail." Qin Mu laughed and returned to his carriage. Leisurely songs came from his mouth. In the mist, his singing sounded rich and leisurely, like warm old wine. It gave people a feeling of melancholy and boldness. "Today, I'm at the grand overarching heaven. In the depths of drunkenness, I see an ethereal jade capital mountain. I'll sing until my steps are shaky. What year is it now? Water and fields." Wei Suifeng listened to him as he watched the carriage disappearing into the mist. He shook his head and said, "Frivolous, who did he learn it from?" The cult masters of the Heavenly Saint cult were multi-talented ever since his generation. Back then, Wei Suifeng was a casual and dissolute degenerate. He knew that Qin Mu was using songs to boost his morale from his choice of lyrics. "What year is it now? I'm at the grand overarching heaven. Brother's ambition is visible," Wei Suifeng said, astounded. The singing stopped as the carriage reached the Celestial River and drove towards the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens. "I left a letter telling South Deity to find Celestial Venerable You and give her a feather. I also asked her to secretly split part of her soul for reincarnation. All we need to do is find that feather, and we can complete the journey." Qin Mu was brimming with confidence as he looked at the Heaven Han celestial heavens. It was larger than before again, which made him feel estranged. Far away, one could hear a lady singing on the celestial river. Her singing was melodious and calming. Hundreds of rivers flow into the ocean. The stars coalesce around the North Star. They shine on the Heaven Han and create large ferries for merchants. Sailing through heaven and earth, the kings save their people. While places are cleansed, heroes will gather. Qin Mu looked towards the singing and saw a red-clad lady flying with the wind from the front of a boat. She sang towards the Heaven Han celestial heavens with an unspeakable charisma. Qin Mu couldn't help but be attracted. He ordered the dragon Qilin to stop so he could listen to her. Yenner smiled and said, "Surprisingly, this lady is somewhat similar to me, master." Her voice alerted the lady. She came to look and was visibly displeased, as the one who said that was a fat green sparrow that was almost horizontal. She said, "Where am I similar to this silly sparrow?" However, Yenner's words enlightened Qin Mu. He looked at her and found that she was indeed similar to Yenner. He remarked, "Indeed." Her dress fluttered, and on the back of her head was a vermilion bird feather. She furiously said, "Where? She's so fat." Qin Mu laughed heartily and stepped out of the treasure carriage. Mu Qing has seen Sister South Deity before. Mu Qing, Sister South Deity. The girl in the red dress was perplexed. Her voice was soft and gentle, though her expression seemed a little half-witted. "You may be Mu Qing, but I'm not your sister. You have mixed me up with another person, silly."
Im Kafaigin, a disciple un de celestial venerable iwa.
Qin Mu had doubts in his heart. Could it be that I've recognized the wrong person? This lady is dressed solely in bright red, similar to South Deity's style. Also, the vermilion bird feather that's in her hair is the vermilion bird feather of South Deity. I couldn't have made a mistake. Moreover, the poem she was singing just now had an extraordinary air to it. With her breadth of mind, she sang with such gusto, and it felt like the gush of 100 rivers running into the sea, as though all of the stars were shining at the same time. How could a half-witted person produce such a piece of art? He voiced his question when he was done thinking, and the girl in the red dress, Kei Fein, answered, "This is Celestial Emperor Yun's poem. It wasn't written by me. I learned it when I heard him singing." The dragon Qilin said, "Lady Fein, my cult master and Celestial Venerable, you are good friends, and he's here to visit her. May I trouble you to inform her?" "Master isn't in." Kei Fein examined them and said, "My master and Celestial Venerable Yun are out and aren't in the celestial heavens. Are you really a close friend of my master? I don't recognize you." Qin Mu stepped out of the treasure carriage. The eyelids at the heart of his brows slowly opened to the sides, revealing his third eye. Instantly, he was able to see both the past and present lives of the lady called Kei Fein clearly. Since his god eye fused many pieces of the grand primordium origin stone, he possessed more of its marvels within. He saw that thousands of years ago, a ball of flames descended from the starry sky in the south, where Vermilion Bird Palace was, and landed into the home of an ordinary family in the primordial realm. 10 months later, the family's mistress gave birth to a girl. When she was born, the sky was filled with a red tinge, which transformed into vermilion birds that circled the delivery room. After she was born and became an adult, Celestial Venerable Yu came and accepted her as a disciple. She imparted to her the paths, skills, and divine arts, and she brought her to the Heaven Han celestial heavens. However, in a battle with the Dragon Heaven celestial heavens, that girl encountered Son of Heaven Een, who killed her on the spot by taking her soul away. Celestial Venerable Yu was enraged and wounded Son of Heaven Een severely, taking back the soul. That night, Celestial Venerable Yu found Celestial Venerable Yu, who was going through the battlefield collecting souls. She gave the soul to him. After another 10 months, a baby girl was born and was again accepted by Celestial Venerable Yu as a disciple. She had extraordinary intelligence and was able to master any divine art on the first try. However, she didn't have any memory of her previous life and didn't know who she was. The good times didn't last. During one of her travels, she was surrounded and killed by half-gods. This time it was also Son of Heaven Een who led the half-gods to invade the human territories. Qin Mu continued with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th reincarnation. Every time she was reincarnated, she would somehow get killed. Every time, it would be by the hands of Son of Heaven Een. With each reincarnation, her intelligence and memory gradually decreased. Kei Fein was her 100th lifetime. Celestial Venerable Yu continued to accept her as her disciple, devoting all of her attention towards teaching her. However, Kei Fein had become a little half-witted, and was being referred to by some as Silly Lady Quebec. Son of Heaven Een did this on purpose. His Yudu Great Tao has already reached the highest attainments, and is able to see where South Deity Zhukei's reincarnated soul will be. Hence, he's able to find her accurately every time. Qin Mu was enraged. Using his third eye, he had watched South Deity Zhukei's reincarnations die 99 times. Every time, Son of Heaven Yin had a hand in it. Son of Heaven Yin has very high attainments in the path of souls. He must have done something to South Deity's soul, causing her to be muddle-headed during her reincarnations, forever not being able to realize that she was South Deity. This fellow has plotted against South Deity, goddess of heavenly Yin and Diua. It's as though he has a deep grudge against beautiful women. Qin Mu composed himself and tried his best to put on a kind expression. He extended his hand towards Kei Feiyin and smiled. Lady Feiyin, come over here. I have a good treasure to show you. Kei Feiyin was skeptical. She leaped off the boat and boarded the treasure carriage, asking curiously, "What treasure?" Qin Mu smiled ambiguously as he thought, "It's indeed not easy for this silly girl to have survived for so long." Kei Feiyin laughed. "You brute. Seeing how you look at me with your sneaky look, you are likely a lecher. Where's the treasure? Take it out quickly, I won't snatch it away from you." Qin Mu was about to carefully examine her soul to see what kind of underhand trick Son of Heaven Yin had done when someone suddenly shouted, "Silly Lady Kei, why have you gone onto someone else's carriage?" Yenner and Kei Feiyin gave a sound of acknowledgement at the same time. Yenner lowered her head and felt a little vexed. "Why did I answer too?" Kei Feiyin hurriedly leaped out of the treasure carriage and said, "My senior sisters are calling me. I'll see your treasure later." Qin Mu was examining her for the source of her muddle-headedness and faintly saw a gate, which looked vaguely like the Mingdu Heavenly Gate of Son of Heaven Yin. However, Kei Feiyin had already run off to rejoin the youths on the boat. Qin Mu groaned since he was about to see an unusual scene. Kei Feiyin was the reincarnation of South Deity Zhu Quebec. However, every time she was reincarnated, she was killed by Son of Heaven Yin. Every time she died, her soul would pass through the Mingdu Heavenly Gate of Son of Heaven Yin. After going through the gate, the soul of South Deity had more heaven souls, earth souls, and the 7 spirits, patching up her 3 souls and 7 spirits. In other words, South Deity is using the God soul of the 3 souls to reincarnate. For the 99 times she died, Son of Heaven Yin patched up her 3 souls and 7 spirits 99 times, reducing her God nature. Qin Mu looked at the youths on the boat, who were likely the disciples of Celestial Venerable Yu and were guarded against him. They were in the midst of talking to Kei Feiyin, probably warning her not to talk to strangers. After going through 99 reincarnations, it's as though South Deity has been sealed 99 times. Her God nature has become negligible. If she goes through another reincarnation, her God soul will completely lose its way and won't be able to wake up anymore. Qin Mu couldn't help but praise Son of Heaven Yin. If the reincarnation of South Deity dies again, she'll become immortal. Son of Heaven Yin is indeed remarkable. He could create a soul spell that could deal with the ancient gods in this era. He's worthy of the title Black Deity. His patience is frightening, fully focusing his energy on plotting against South Deity 99 times. He already had full confidence in breaking Son of Heaven Yin's divine art. However, the important question was how to ensure that the reincarnation of South Deity survived in this ancient era. He only had 4 opportunities left to travel back to the ancient era. On his 5th time, he would be turned into an unchanging substance. He couldn't keep on protecting this silly girl from Son of Heaven Yin's attacks. Son of Heaven Yin's patience and persistence had caused him a great headache. More importantly, this fellow was very good-looking. Given his handsome appearance, it was difficult for ladies to maintain their guard. The man in the carriage is clearly a bad person. Bad people all say they have treasures so that they can fool ignorant girls. On the boat, a pair of Celestial Venerable Yu's female disciples were guiding Kei Feiyin. After they finished talking, they glanced at Qin Mu. Qin Mu thought for some time. He then cut out a piece of beautiful jade from an ancestral court jade mountain in the Qin wordland, carefully carving it. After which, with a thought in his head, his primordial spirit transformed into the image of Earth Count. His primordial spirit mouthed deep, heavy-sounding Yudu language. For every syllable he produced, his Yudu devil chi transformed into Yudu characters, imprinting themselves onto the jade pendant. The language of Yudu sounded deep and coarse, as though an ancient god who held souls was chanting. Celestial Venerable Yu's disciples on the boat were astonished. That pair of female disciples quickly grabbed Kei Feiyin and pouted their lips towards the boat. "Silly Lady Kei, look over there." Kei Feiyin laid on the bow of the ship and looked down. She saw the heavenly dragon treasure carriage following their boat closely like a shadow. At that moment, extremely thick Yuta devil chi emerged from the heavenly dragon treasure carriage, like giant black pythons. It crisscrossed and weaved around the carriage, looking incomparably frightening. Kei Fei got a fright and hurriedly retracted her head. Senior sister, the man in the carriage isn't a good person. Of course he's not a good person. The people on the boat said. Now it's locked onto us. Master said before that you would be dogged by disasters and misfortunes from young, and that you would one day perish from these encounters. Looks like your time has come. Kei Fei was as anxious as ants on a hot pan. She paced around and said, What should we do? Master isn't in the celestial heavens. Senior Aunt Ling and Senior Uncle Yun aren't around either. Who can resist this big devil? Everyone panicked. Quiet. Be careful of being hurt by the big devil. Below, there were faint whispers of devil language from the heavenly dragon treasure carriage, which sounded extremely sinister. The devil nature from the carriage became heavier and heavier, making everyone's scalps numb. I'm afraid that it's the great devil king of Yudu. In the carriage, Qin Mu changed a variety of runes in succession, and finally refined the jade pendant. He called for Yenner and said, Give this jade pendant to Kei Fei, and tell her it's a meeting gift from me. Also, ask for the vermilion bird feather on her head. Yenner took the jade pendant and probed. Young master, is that Kei Fei my mother?
Qin Mu nodded.
Yenner didn't look too happy. She's so silly, how can she be my mother?
Qin Mu laughed.
Quick, be on your way. Yenner flew aboard the boat, which was fleeing to the Heaven Han celestial heavens, intending to shake off the heavenly dragon treasure carriage. However, it was unable to do so. Everyone was astonished when they saw Yenner flying up, changing from a chubby green sparrow into a fat girl. The Devil King's messenger has got on the boat. I'm afraid that the bloodshedding disaster of junior sister Kei is coming. Yenner walked up and said, Mother, lady, young master wanted you to have a look at this treasure. Kei Fei wanted to step forward to take a look but was held back by everyone, so as to prevent this silly lady from getting ambushed. Yenner suddenly barged her way through the crowd and got close to Kei Fei. She then placed the jade pendant in her hands and said, This is for you from young master. Everyone was shocked and was about to execute their divine arts when their surroundings suddenly cracked open. The distance between them and Kei Fei grew, causing them to be startled. The divine art that Yenner used was actually of the same school as theirs, which was passed down for generations. They were all divine arts of celestial venerable Yu. Kei Fei wasn't alarmed at all. She curiously examined the jade pendant and could hardly contain her joy. This is really a treasure. My senior sisters even said that the young master in the carriage is a bad person who specializes in cheating ignorant girls. She hung the jade pendant on her neck. Suddenly, it disappeared into her body with a whoosh. You lied to me. Kei Fei was furious. She grabbed Yenner and said, The pretty jade pendant is gone. Qin Mu's voice traveled over. Lady Fei, look at your primordial spirit. Kei Fei quickly looked at her primordial spirit and realized that her vermilion bird primordial spirit was wearing the jade pendant on its neck. Her anger then transformed into joy. So it's here. Yenner took the opportunity to pluck the vermilion bird feather from her head. Kei Fei flew into a rage again and she pursued as she cried, That's my treasure. I don't want your treasure. Return my treasure back to me. Yenner hurriedly flew onto the treasure carriage and shouted, Quick, let's go. The dragon Qilin cracked his whip, and the 6 dragons hurriedly pulled the heavenly dragon treasure carriage away. Kei Fei chased after them, crying at the same time. Her senior sisters quickly caught up with her. Silly Lady Kei, forget it. Luckily, he's just a swindler, not a killer. Otherwise, you'd be dead. Kei Fei wiped her tears and choked up. The big fat girl lied to me. She better hope she isn't found by me. If I find her, I'll beat her bum until it swells. You barely managed to keep your life, yet you're bragging now? When Master comes back and learns of this, she'll beat your bum until it swells. Just as they were speaking, humming sounds traveled over. On top of the celestial river, there were some mosquitoes that came out of nowhere. They were very tiny, flying towards the boat. Everyone looked over and said, This is a place with great winds and waves, so how did these mosquitoes manage to get here? They were chasing them away. Although the mosquitoes were small, they were ferocious with fangs and spikes in their mouths. As they were chasing away the mosquitoes and feeling bewildered, Kei Fei said, I'm feeling a little drowsy. Everyone looked at her and got a fright. Within this short span of time, Kei Fei had become nothing but skin and bones, and she had a look of death on her face. A huge mosquito was on her back, its mouth apparatus inserted into her heart, forcefully sucking the blood out. The belly of that mosquito was already fat and round, In an instant, all of her blood was being sucked dry by this mosquito, killing her. Everyone was panicking, crying and wailing miserably. Kei Fei's soul drifted leisurely, being led away by an inexplicable force. Not long after, she saw the netherworld sea rippling among the darkness. A half-built gate stood in the middle of it. A handsome man carrying a gourd was standing beneath the gate. Many mosquitoes flew over and entered into the gourd. "She's here." The handsome man couldn't help but smile when he saw her. "This is the 100th death. After this, South Deity's god soul will be completely sealed and will never wake up. I've finished carrying out Celestial Venerable House instructions." Kei Fei was let to fly towards the incomplete gate. After passing through it, she was reborn. These insects were indeed not bad, worthy of being the family treasure of Celestial Emperor. However, Celestial Venerable How got a hold of so many good treasures, and yet he only gave me this bag of insects. He's really stingy. The handsome man was son of Heaven Yin. He patted his gourd and pondered. These ancient primordial divine insects are too difficult to rear. If I could use North Deity Xianwu's 5 Thunderpot to raise them, their power would be greatly increased. North Deity may not be willing to give me one, but Prince Yu Ming is a rash fellow who acts aggressively just because he's rich. Perhaps I could get a pot from him. Suddenly, he frowned and felt that there was something strange about Kei Fei when she passed through the Mingdu Heavenly Gate. Her previous mind wasn't erased. He was a little anxious and muttered, "The last step wasn't completed. I don't know what went wrong." Well, there's next time. The soul of South Deity has become stupid, so it's not difficult to kill her. I won't need to spend too much effort in the future. Since she has become so stupid, I'll use my ancient primordial divine insects to kill her. Kei Fei's soul drifted around. She knew that she was already dead. Suddenly, she felt that her mind became a little clearer, her thoughts more agile than before. She was puzzled. Could it be that I've become smarter after passing through the gate? 10 months later, Kei Fei was born. Immediately, she was aware of her previous life and remembered that she was the disciple of Celestial Venerable Yu, and had the name Kei Fei. She even remembered how she died. Celestial Venerable Yu ordered her disciples to search for her, but never managed to find her despite searching for more than 10 years. Celestial Venerable Yu was surprised when Kei Fei located the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens herself. She thought that Kei Fei's vermilion bird god soul was awakened. However, after she performed a check, she realized that Kei Fei hadn't awakened her vermilion bird god soul. Although Kei Fei was smarter than before, she was still not intelligent enough. She took 400 years to cultivate to the god realm, after which, coincidentally, a war between the humans and half-gods broke out. Kei Fei was sent to the battlefield and was killed by a giant mosquito. The Kei Fei who died saw the same Netherworld Sea and Mingdu Heavenly Gate. Once again she passed through it. Right after that she got a shock. She actually remembered another of her past lives. Strange. 10 years later, the reincarnated Kei Fei was an ignorant little girl with a pair of braids who was only 5 feet tall. It was then that she sailed all the way to the celestial heavens, skipping and hopping along her way to find Celestial Venerable Yu. Celestial Venerable Yu performed her check again and realized that Kei Fei actually got a little smarter. She clicked her tongue in wonder. Every time South Deity dies, her muddle-headedness decreases. Why is that so? However, a few hundred years later, Kei Fei, who had become a god, was bitten by a large mosquito, which mysteriously appeared during one of her exploration trips in the primordial realm. It sucked all her blood and killed her. It was still the same Netherworld Sea and the same Mingdu Heavenly Gate. Kei Fei passed through the gate and was delighted. I've awakened the memories of another of my past lives again. This is definitely strange. During the long period between Dragon Han and Eternal Peace, Kei Fei died again and again. Her death was the same every time. She was bitten and killed by a mosquito that came out of nowhere. Each time she died, she would reawaken the memories of an even earlier life. She also became more and more intelligent and began to think about how to avoid death. She repeatedly avoided the weird mosquito's attempts at her life. Her lifespan grew longer and longer with each reincarnation, and her cultivation became higher. Later, it became difficult for the ancient primordial divine insect to kill her, so Son of Heaven Een had to do it personally. Celestial Venerable Yu helped her resist several encounters. However, Son of Heaven Een was too cunning. There would be times where she was distracted, and Kei Fei would then die by his hands. Later, the reincarnated Kei Fei mastered the skills of Celestial Venerable Yu, and simply didn't want to be under the sect of Celestial Venerable Yu anymore, thus trying to avoid the disasters herself. Celestial Venerable Yu was upset and disappointed. She thought that Kei Fei was really dead, so she gave up on her. Son of Heaven Een had a big headache, But he persisted, searching for her all over. Instead, he was ambushed by Kei Fane several times and almost died. On the Heavenly Dragon treasure carriage, Yennefer still had some worries. She asked, "Young master, can that jade pendant save my mother?" "Of course it can," Qinmu said. "He was unable to hide the principle of his divine art from me, so I made use of him to break his own seal. However, your mother still needs to die. Son of Heaven Een will continue to hunt and seek her, to finish completely sealing up her soul." He couldn't help but smile. "Every time your mother dies, the seal will loosen a little, opening up the memory of one lifetime. After she has died 99 times, she'll be completely awakened, together with the vermilion bird god's soul." Yennefer cried. "My mother still has to die 99 times? This isn't right. What if Son of Heaven Een stops killing her? Isn't that?" "He won't stop," Qinmu said leisurely. "I know Son of Heaven Een. He's extremely stubborn and will never stop before a matter is done perfectly. As long as your mother is still a little clear-headed, he'll do it again and again until her god soul is completely wiped out. He's such a person, so I made use of him to break his own seal." Yennefer pondered a while and said, "This guy is full of patience." Because he wanted to get a 5 thunder pot, he released worms to bite North deities' gourd vines. This lasted hundreds of thousands of years.
Qinmu smiled faintly.
From Dragon Han to the present, there are many cases of massacres. The largest were the early Dragon Han massacre, the Crimson Light massacre, the High Emperor massacre, and the Founding Emperor massacre. It would be very difficult for Kei Fane to survive all of those massacres. Because Son of Heaven Een is looking for perfection, he'll ensure that she doesn't lose her soul. Confrontation with Son of Heaven Een will also make her more and more intelligent. Son of Heaven Een is extraordinarily smart. He'll be the stone that sharpens the knife, which means her improvements will be shocking. Yennefer clenched her fists with excitement. Her eyes gleamed as she said, "You mean my mother is still alive?" "Definitely." Qinmu smiled faintly and said, "When we return to eternal peace, we only need to check the life and death book, and we'll know what her name was and where she was born in this life. The only thing that's uncertain is whether she will have died 99 times already." He released a long sigh. "When she dies 99 times, the vermilion bird god soul will awaken, and she'll remember all of the previous lives. And..." He waved the vermilion bird feather in his hand and laughed. "With this feather, it'll be easier to find her and her other broken souls." Yennefer teared up with joy. Qinmu could finally stop worrying. The solution was perfect, but he was still a little uneasy. What if Kei Fane didn't die 99 times? What if, during their battles, she was so smart and cunning that he was unable to kill her? That shouldn't happen. Qinmu comforted himself. Son of Heaven Een is very powerful, and he wouldn't be unable to kill a little girl who hasn't awakened her vermilion bird soul. He has always been a lady killer. Killing women, especially beautiful women, is his specialty. Suddenly, he remembered something and was a little confused. Celestial Venerable Ling, Celestial Venerable Yu, and Celestial Venerable Yun weren't in the Heaven Han celestial heavens. What exactly happened that required those 3 celestial venerables to head out together? It was reasonable for Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Yu to be out, as their abilities were profound. However, Celestial Venerable Ling wasn't known for her combat ability. In fact, Celestial Venerable Ling's cultivation realm had been low all along. The last time Qinmu met her, she was just at the True God realm. To her, it didn't matter whether her realm was high or not. Ultimately, what was important was her research on divine arts. Celestial Venerable Ling wasn't in the celestial heavens this time, indicating that the matter was urgent and serious. The Heavenly Dragon treasure carriage stopped. Qinmu sneaked into the Heaven Han celestial heavens and found Celestial Venerable Ling's residence. Many ponies on bamboo rods were still checking the scattered manuscripts, and Celestial Venerable Ling's residence was still in a disorderly state, looking extremely messy. When Yennefer saw this, her old habit reappeared, and she diligently helped Celestial Venerable Ling sort out the mess. Qinmu also helped sort out the manuscripts. All of a sudden, he chanced upon a stack of drawings and was stunned. He quickly flipped through the drawings. They were drawings of a woman and various runes of creation. Langwu. Qinmu's heart jumped. He carefully looked through the drawings again and confirmed that what Celestial Venerable Ling drew was Donghua in her youth. The Donghua at this period could be described as beautiful, pure, and full of vitality, capable of making the hearts of people throb violently, giving them a feeling of being in love. Compared to her, although the divine King Donghua of the later generations was prettier, her heart had become icy. She was less emotional and more rational. Although Celestial Venerable Ling's drawing hadn't reached the level of the painting path, she managed to capture the beauty of the girl in her drawings. Clearly, it wasn't her first time seeing Donghua. Qin Mu composed himself and flipped through other drawings. They were mostly runes of creation. Apart from that, he found another piece of drawing. It was a picture of a humongous and complicated divine weapon. Qin Mu quickly examined it, his expression grim.
Creation divine weapon.
It wasn't simply a small piece of divine weapon. It was a mammoth-sized divine weapon. The creation divine weapon was extremely large and complicated. It was a behemoth that was able to unleash the path of creation to its fullest. Is this creation divine weapon the same as the one in the Patriarch Creation Palace? Mistress Yuanmu created Yun Chuxiu, and the 10 Celestial Venerables created the divine weapon Celestial Venerable Yu. Is this the creation divine weapon they used?
Qin Mu groaned.
The drawings were extremely complicated. According to the required materials, there was no divine metal or iron in the world that could create the creation divine weapon. Even treasures such as the iron of the ruins of End or the metal of Heavenly Een weren't suitable. The iron of the ruins of End and metal of Heavenly Een contain natural Tao rhythm, each with its own attributes. Forging the creation divine weapon required divine metal without any attributes in order to unleash the path of creation to its fullest. No wonder Celestial Venerable Yun went to Clear Sun Hall to steal treasures. In addition to the Grand Emperor's seal and sacrificial altar, his purpose was to find a treasure that could perfectly fit the path of creation. This treasure can only appear in the ancestral court. He also saw other drawings, which were consciousness runes contained in the Grand Emperor's seal and sacrificial altar. Celestial Venerable Ling had deconstructed the seal and altar, and from them, she had created the consciousness runes. Although the masters of creation of the ancient primordial era had powerful consciousnesses, they didn't have much development in the area of runes. To them, the runes of Great Tao were a complete blank. If the Grand Emperor was here and saw the consciousness runes that Celestial Venerable Ling deconstructed, he would sigh ruefully and believe that Celestial Venerable Ling was his Tao friend. However, he would kill her in the next moment. Qin Mu's gaze flickered as he looked at the consciousness runes that Celestial Venerable Ling had sorted out. Celestial Venerable Ling was fascinated by academics, and she didn't care about anything else. Celestial Venerable Yu once said that her aptitude and comprehension were above his. Perhaps Celestial Venerable Yu was being modest, but Celestial Venerable Ling's aptitude and comprehension were incredibly high. It must have been Celestial Venerable Yun who asked her to deconstruct the Grand Emperor's consciousness runes, likely so that they could use them to determine his weakness. That is to say, Celestial Venerable Yun used these consciousness runes to determine the flaws of the Grand Emperor's great overarching supreme consciousness, and laid a trap for him in the Great Void. The Grand Emperor's supreme consciousness realm has been broken. When he executes his supreme consciousness realm, it'll be his death. Looking at the drawings, Qin Mu suddenly realized why the 3 Celestial Venerables were mobilized. They are heading to the Great Void, preparing to deal with the Grand Emperor. His eyes were extremely bright as he raised his head. In recent years, Celestial Venerable Ling didn't continue her research on unchanging substance, deducing the path of creation to its fullest instead. This, together with the study of the Grand Emperor's consciousness, took up a lot of her time. However, because of this, Celestial Venerable Yun had established a method to deal with the Grand Emperor and the ancient Celestial Emperor. I'm afraid that, at this moment, there is a great battle raging in the Great Void. Qin Mu's heart trembled. However, he couldn't rush over in time to witness this battle that would have an impact on the later generations. In the Great Void, an earth-shaking noise traveled over. The majestic bearing of the Grand Emperor shattered the sky, crushing the stars that the Masters of Creation visualized, and destroying the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers. The world created by the Masters of Creation of the Great Void was collapsing. The terrifying consciousness retracted and performed a counterattack, charging into the minds of the Masters of Creation. The once peaceful land of the Great Void was suddenly turned into a huge massacre scene. The Masters of Creation who escaped into the land of the Great Void involuntarily raised their heads towards the sky under the powerful consciousness attack. Uncontrollable consciousness surged from their mouths, shattering their consciousnesses and minds, pulverizing their thoughts. The land of the Great Void consisted of 2 landmasses. On the other landmass, the young divine King Lang will watch this scene in a daze. Celestial Venerable Yun stood beside her and said gently, "Donghua, you and your people don't understand plots and schemes. Today I'll give you a lesson, a final lesson," he said with a complex expression on his face. For the survival of one's race, nothing is off limits. Divine King Lang's mouth was wide open. She looked at the chiefs and elders of the Masters of Creation, who were behind Celestial Venerable Yun. No one got up to attack the Grand Emperor and try to stop his massacre. For the survival of one's race, everything is worth sacrificing. Celestial Venerable Yun used an indifferent tone as he continued to speak to Donghua, saying, "The first piece of land of the Great Void and the Masters of Creation there can be allowed to be destroyed by the Grand Emperor. The collapse of consciousness in the Great Void will turn that land of the Great Void into a hopeless situation. The consciousness will not only counterattack us, but it will also counterattack the Grand Emperor. The stronger the cultivation, the stronger the counterattack." He forcibly revealed a faint smile. "I can use the million deaths of your people to exchange for the lives of the 100,000 people behind you." The young Donghua looked pleadingly at the various chiefs and elders. Behind them were 100,000 Masters of Creation. "Please save them." Donghua heard herself pleading them in a strange voice. "Please." The 98 most ancient Master of Creation chiefs and elders entangled their consciousnesses together, turning it into a sonorous consciousness tremble. It was filled with the joy of being able to die for the future of their race. "Donghua, the Holy Lady of the Masters of Creation, in order to ensure the survival of our race, everything is worth sacrificing. We are ready." Since Celestial Venerable Yun first set foot in that strange world, he had often gone there to advise the Masters of Creation, explaining various strategies to Donghua and the other Masters of Creation, trying to make them understand how to deceive. However, it always had little effect. This was due to the environment that the Masters of Creation lived in. The Masters of Creation there yearned for a life without troubles and worries. Otherwise, they wouldn't have fled there and built the Great Void. It was also due to their consciousness cultivation. There was no need for lies or deception among the Masters of Creation. They communicated with each other via consciousness. Once their consciousness touched gently, they would know everything in each other's hearts. Hence, deception and lies were unable to survive there. Back then, the reason ancestor spirit Luo Xiao was able to leave the Great Void to collect information was that he was the smartest person among the Masters of Creation. Despite that, Luo Xiao didn't learn how to lie or deceive. Donghua and the rest didn't expect that the last lesson Celestial Venerable Yun gave them would be so cruel. So cruel that they had to deceive the people of the other landmass, using the lives of millions and the destruction of the land of the Great Void in order to limit the power of the Grand Emperor. And the 98 chiefs and elders actually agreed with his proposal. The aim of Celestial Venerable Yun and the 98 chiefs and elders was to exchange the lives of 1,000,000 for the lives of 100,000. The young Donghua felt like she was in a daze. She saw that the other land of the Great Void had been completely destroyed. That vast continent, the starry sky created by the Masters of Creation, billions of stars, the mountains, rivers, lakes, seas, and creatures created by visualization were all destroyed and turned into a torrent of ownerless consciousness. The consequences of the collapse of consciousness were too serious. The entire land was plunged into great horror, where whatever one thought of they would receive. The Heart Devil had made it an extremely frightening place. The chaotic and terrifying ownerless consciousness would sense the devil in one's inner heart and turn it into reality. Similarly, the frightening consciousness would interact with one's consciousness, polluting it. That once supremely pure land was completely polluted. They were afraid that the other land of the Great Void would soon be destroyed as well, as the Grand Emperor had arrived there. The 98 chiefs and elders followed the plans of Celestial Venerable Yun and the others, fighting a bloody battle with the Grand Emperor, dying one after another. Then finally they lured him into a trap. The trap was designed by Yun, Yu and Ling, those three celestial venerables, to counter the Grand Emperor's great overarching supreme consciousness and attack the weakness in his consciousness. However, the price paid was too terrifying. In order to kill the Grand Emperor, they didn't hesitate to use the Grand Emperor to destroy the land of the Great Void, so as to fill the Great Void with disorderly ownerless consciousness to suppress the Grand Emperor's cultivation. In order to kill the Grand Emperor, they used almost all of the sacred sacrificial objects contributed by countless people of various tribes to trap the Grand Emperor. They lured the Grand Emperor into the Lotus landmass and activated the traps designed by the three celestial venerables, using the path of creation to restrain the Grand Emperor's ability to create things. Countless thick tentacles broke through the flesh of the legs of the Grand Emperor. The tentacles pierced into the Lotus landmass, holding down the Grand Emperor's corporeal body. They fought desperately, forcing the Grand Emperor to execute his supreme consciousness realm. However, when he did that, he doomed himself. At the same time, he had doomed them. At that moment, the three celestial venerables, Yun, Yu and Ling, simultaneously moved into action, reversing the supreme consciousness realm, sealing the Grand Emperor together with the remaining chiefs and elders inside it. The Grand Emperor's Supreme Consciousness realm was the final step to trap him. The three young celestial venerables stood outside the Supreme Consciousness realm and looked at everything around them with mixed feelings in their hearts. The Grand Emperor Ju Yushir, who even Celestial Emperor and his ancient gods might not have been able to take down and kill, had died at their hands. The Grand Emperor was honored by the Masters of Creation as having a peerless corporeal body and unrivaled consciousness. However, his corporeal body was dead, and his consciousness was eternally sealed. All of that was accomplished by the three young celestial venerables of the human race. The three of you. The Grand Emperor's consciousness was frozen in his own Supreme Consciousness realm. However, it was still vibrating violently. Over time, the tremors became weaker and weaker. He looked at the three young faces outside the realm and did his best to mobilize his last trace of consciousness, reverberating between heaven and earth. I will kill the three of you in succession to avenge my deep grudge for what happened today. You're already destined to die at my hands one after another, and your corpses will become my spoils of war. Celestial Venerable Ling raised a finger, and a small rune twitched at her fingertips, filling the Supreme Consciousness realm. She seemed to complete the last puzzle, and the trap was fully activated, sealing the Grand Emperor completely. The Grand Emperor is finally dead. It's time for us to head back, Celestial Venerable Ling said. Celestial Venerable, you looked around. The land of the Great Void that remained was filled with monsters born from heart devils. It had become an inhospitable place. She couldn't help but reveal a pitiful expression, saying, "Then they." Celestial Venerable Yun walked towards the surviving masters of creation. The few remaining chiefs and elders told him, "We'll lead the remaining people to migrate to the other side of the land of the Great Void and create a void bridge in accordance to the second prophecy of our ancestor spirit, building a world without worries and troubles on the other side." Celestial Venerable Yun nodded. "From time to time, I'll come back to help you until you've created the Permitha world. Celestial Venerable, you will also help you design the entrance from the Void Bridge to the Permitha world. She has designed the 3 houses that will prevent others from discovering the Permitha world." He then went over to Donghua. The young Donghua was still sorrowful and quiet. "I used to like you, but not anymore starting from now." That young master of creation fell into a daze. Suddenly, tears rolled down her cheeks. However, her tone was unusually calm as she said without turning her head back while walking off with the masters of creation, "I guess I won't fall for another person again. Yun, your last lesson touched me greatly. For the sake of my people, I'll be another you." Celestial Venerable Yun stood there blankly as he watched her leave. All of a sudden, he felt a tingle of pain in his heart. He wanted to tell her that she didn't have to be like him. He wanted to see her as carefree as before. He wanted to shout out to her, giving her promises. In the end, there was a smile on his face as he heard himself say, "Okay." Langhua's body shook slightly when she heard him. Ultimately, she strengthened her resolve as she slowly walked off into the distance. Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Ling came beside him. Celestial Venerable Yun wiped away the sorrow in his heart and invigorated his spirit. "We should go now, the human race needs us." The 3 of them then left the decimated land. Inadvertently, they looked back and saw the surviving masters of creation embarking on their migration, which was similar to the hardship faced by their ancestors. They walked in the ruined world of the land of the Great Void. How many of the 100,000 masters of creation who embarked on the trip from there to the Permitha world would survive? Celestial Venerable Yun and the rest didn't know the answer. However, Qin Mu had heard Donghua mention it before. There were only 20,000 who managed to enter the Permitha world alive. Celestial Venerable Yun and the others arrived outside the Great Void and turned back once again. They saw that the Great Void, which was originally hidden in the void, had been torn by the Grand Emperor, giving off glows of light. In the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens, in Celestial Venerable Ling's residence, Qin Mu put the drawings down and closed his eyes. The scenes of the Great Void's battle had already flashed through his mind. Every step of Celestial Venerable Yun was clearly reflected in his mind, image after image. The Grand Emperor crushed the land of the Great Void that was constructed from consciousness. The deaths of the countless masters of creation, and the attack of the collapsed consciousness. Even the leaders of the masters of creation as they tempted the enemy to venture deeper, finally luring him into the trap. There was Celestial Venerable Ling's deconstruction of the Grand Emperor's seal and sacrificial altar, and the inner workings of Celestial Venerable Yun's ambush and Celestial Venerable Ling's trap in the Supreme Consciousness realm. Although he didn't personally witness all of these, he could deduce the details of the battle based on Celestial Venerable Ling's drawings. After some time, Qin Mu opened his eyes. His gaze flickered as he said solemnly, "Yenalong Pai, let's wait outside the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens, on top of the celestial river. Yenna was very curious. Who are we waiting for? Is it Celestial Venerable Yun and the rest? No. There was radiance in Qin Mu's eyes as he said, "We are waiting for Dahong. If the Grand Emperor is dead, Dahong will definitely come charging with hate, wanting to destroy the Heaven Han celestial heavens." Qin Mu said solemnly, "At the west pole of West Deity White Tiger, I stopped Hong, preventing him from harming West Deity further. Even when he had no reason to harm West Deity, he asked me for a certificate of debt, saying I owed him a favor. He won't let anyone get away with anything. Celestial Venerable Yun killed his corporeal body and trapped his consciousness, so he will definitely come to seek revenge." Yenner and the dragon Qilin were alarmed and hurriedly followed him to the outside of the Heaven Han celestial heavens. The dragon Qilin then fastened up the carriage. Qin Mu sat behind the pearl curtains inside the treasure carriage. He composed himself and produced a sword pellet. With a gentle flick, the sword pellet started circulating, turning into a divine sword that sat horizontally across his knees. The 6 heavenly dragons pulled the treasure carriage to a stop on top of the celestial river, in front of the Heaven Han celestial heavens. Qin Mu, with his sword on his knees, closed his eyes and waited quietly. Celestial Venerable Yun's plan for killing the Grand Emperor in the Great Void was clearly understood by Qin Mu. However, the Heaven Han celestial heavens wasn't the land of the Great Void. Hence, Qin Mu was unable to replicate Celestial Venerable Yun's plan there. Only Celestial Venerable Ling's method of breaking the Grand Emperor's seal and sacrificial altar was useful to him. However, Dahong was extremely powerful. During his battle with Celestial Emperor in the Ancestral Court, he had demonstrated his terrifying combat power. Qin Mu was well aware that his own abilities were far inferior. Qin Mu wasn't confident that he would be able to break his great overarching Supreme Consciousness and Supreme Consciousness realm with Celestial Venerable Ling's method. The water of the celestial river flowed from west to east, flowing up into the sky, majestic and endless. The heavenly dragon treasure carriage was stationed outside the Heaven Han celestial heavens. Despite the river gushing below, the treasure carriage remained motionless. The sun descended in the west as the lanterns hanging in front of treasure carriage lit up. When the sun sank, it rose again from the East Sea. It went on like that for a few days, during which there was even a heavy downpour. There was a drought in the primordial realm, and people from the tribes offered 3 pairs of boys and girls to the Rainbringer ancient god as a sacrifice. The Rainbringer ate the children and projected rain into the primordial realm. Because the sacrifice was too meager, only a thin layer of rain fell. He then reminded the people with his thunderous voice that if they wanted more rain, they would have to sacrifice more children. After the rain from the Rainbringer, there was a drought again. There were no plants for thousands of miles, just red dried earth. There were many divine arts practitioners who hurriedly flew past the treasure carriage as they rushed to the Heaven Han celestial heavens, asking the gods in the celestial heavens to suppress the drought. Qin Mu continued to remain motionless. Yenner waited until she got a little anxious. Her head moved around and saw the apparitions of a god of thunder and goddess of lightning galloping among the cloud, blasting lightning from their hands. Sounds of thunder rolled and rumbled as lightning shot up all over the place. They were looking for the thieves who sneaked into Xuandu to steal the heavenly fire. Daily life in the primordial realm was the same as usual. The ancient gods still occupied a big part of people's lives. Of course, this would be pretty rare in the later generations. Yenner was looking around and suddenly, she heard a wailing voice coming from the distance, screaming loudly, "Dahong! Dahong!" Yenner's heart jumped, while the dragon Qilin immediately stood up. The 6 heavenly dragons' muscles and bones suddenly went limp, and they were almost paralyzed on the river. In the distance, a giant bird fluttered towards them. They saw its green-gold feathers covering the sky like a large gloomy cloud flying towards the Heaven Han celestial heavens. The giant bird looked bigger and bigger as it got closer. With its wings spread wide, it seemed that it could completely cover the Heaven Han celestial heavens. The canopy of the heavenly dragon treasure carriage suddenly flew up and repeatedly swirled in the sky. Its umbrella cover rose higher and higher as the spokes of the canopy shot up and merged with the sky, turning into 49 heavenly Tao, which draped over the entire Heaven Han celestial heavens. Qin Mu sat in the carriage and said with a solemn voice, "Dahong, it has been a long time. Why don't you come over for a meeting?" Upon hearing his voice, the green gold giant bird swept its gaze towards them, its eyes glowing brightly. A vast and majestic consciousness gushed, flooding the sky and earth. That was Dahong's consciousness. He didn't use the Supreme Consciousness realm. To deal with a tiny human such as Qin Mu, there was no need for him to use this kind of ultimate skill. Qin Mu held his sword but remained motionless. He mobilized his Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, as his consciousness immediately turned into a great overarching heaven covering the heavenly dragon treasure carriage. Their consciousnesses collided with each other, and the water of the celestial river below tumbled and surged, leaving a 1,000-foot radius around the heavenly dragon treasure carriage as the only safe area. A gigantic sphere was formed with the heavenly dragon treasure carriage at its center. Outside the sphere, waves soared and crashed. Within the sphere, it was calm and quiet. Qin Mu held his breath with rapt attention. Although his realm wasn't high, his consciousness was absolutely strong. Since Donghua didn't attack with all his strength and only used his consciousness to attack, he still had the ability to resist him. The two's consciousnesses collided. Then suddenly, Qin Mu changed his tactics and mobilized the Spirit Embryo Divine Treasure Realm. The Spirit Embryo was one with the Tao, combining Yin and Yang into Taiji. He then opened up the heavens and earth, summoning earth, water, wind, and fire. Stars materialized across the sky, and Heaven Duke, Earth Count, and all of the other gods each had their respective functions and positions. They sat in their respective celestial palaces as they rose through the air. His realm gave off a ripple, forcefully crushing Donghua's consciousness. The turbulent waters of the celestial river abruptly subsided, and the 100-foot-tall waves whipped up by Donghua's consciousness fell with a whoosh. It was then calm and quiet. The instant that the two's divine arts clashed, Donghua flew forward, his claws reaching out for the canopy. The canopy was refined by the celestial heavens 700,000 years later, as part of the carriage for celestial venerables. The treasure carriage itself was an exotic treasure composed of various treasures, and the markings drawn on it belonged to ancient gods like Heaven Duke, Earth Count, and the 4 deities. In order to crumble the alliance between Qin Mu and the ancient gods, the 10 celestial venerables of the celestial heavens gave him the treasure carriage. Qin Mu raised the canopy, transforming it into Heaven Duke. When Donghua reached out for the canopy, Qin Mu's realm expanded with a gentle whoosh, covering the Heaven Han celestial heavens. Within his realm, the sky reflected his image, and a Heaven Duke with Qin Mu's face rose into the air, merging with the canopy's heavenly Tao and forcefully blocking Donghua's attack. The claws of the green gold giant bird collided with the canopy. The Heaven Duke under the canopy was unable to resist the attack and shattered into pieces. In the Heaven Han celestial heavens, the gods of the human race and other post-celestial races reacted. Waves of armies of gods emerged, attacking the giant bird. Qin Mu's consciousness rippled out and roared, "I'm Celestial Venerable Mu. All disciples, listen to my orders. Mobilize the canopy together on my command." There were hundreds of thousands of gods in the Heaven Han celestial heavens. After hearing Qin Mu's words, their primordial spirits quickly appeared as they utilized their vital qi to mobilize the power of the canopy. In the sky, the canopy covered the celestial heavens, becoming brighter as the Heaven Han celestial heavens was sealed with the 49 heavenly Tao. The green gold giant bird pounced and attacked several times in a row, failing to break the canopy. Suddenly, it retracted the green feathers that covered the sky. The corners of Qin Mu's eyes twitched as Donghua came right up to him. "Celestial Venerable Mu, do you absolutely have to stop me?" Qin Mu's eyes jumped twice violently, and cold sweat covered his hands. He saw the battle between Donghua and the ancient celestial emperor's reincarnation, Gu Xiao. They were tough. Although Donghua wasn't Gu Xiao's opponents, he was still powerful. Could he really deal with him? Even though Qin Mu comprehended how Celestial Venerable Ling broke the Grand Emperor's Supreme Consciousness realm, he wasn't confident. The gap was too big. Donghua's sleeves fluttered as he entered the carriage with his gaze on Qin Mu. "How dare you appear here, Grand Emperor? You do know that your enemies are everywhere, right? There's Heaven Duke watching over the primordial realm from above, the Great Sun Sovereign monitoring the heavens, and Mother Earth in control of the primordial realm from below. There's also Divine King Gong Yun searching for you." Qin Mu let out a shaky breath and said, "You just exposed your consciousness divine art. You can't hide from them. If I were you, I would have left after I missed. Yet you remain to settle your score. How unwise." Donghua plainly said without any expression, "I know, but I have to repay the blood feud with more blood. You block me and I'll kill you. It won't take long for me. I'll leave after I'm done. Even Heaven Duke and Mother Earth won't be able to find me. A mere Great Sun Sovereign won't be able to either." Qin Mu's pupils contracted as he coldly said, "You think you can do so in a short time? It has been 100,000 years since we last met, right? I'm 100 times stronger than then. I'm already at the Emperor's throne realm. How do you think I was able to block your hit with a great Tao clone of mine alone?" Donghua's pupils contracted as he replied, "No way, right?" Qin Mu continued, "What do you think of my consciousness attainment?" Donghua's expression changed violently. Qin plainly said, "You can't get any benefits here. I won't trouble you since you're the Grand Emperor. Leave now." Donghua suddenly burst into laughter. "So what if you're at the Emperor's throne's realm? You probably still don't know my divine art. I'll let you see the real primordial ultimate arts." Boom! His consciousness burst forth and became the supreme consciousness realm in an instant. In an instant, the realm expanded, and he had a large spear in his hand. At the same time, everything came to a stop in the realm, as if time had stopped. The only thing that could move was Donghua. Be it Yener the Dragon Qilin or the 6 heavenly dragons, any movement, even that of blood, stopped at that moment. The celestial river stopped in the realm. The moment he used the realm, Qin finally felt relieved. He lied about his realm to force Donghua to use the supreme consciousness realm. If he didn't force it out, Qin wouldn't be able to block even a single hit from Donghua. He would probably be killed in one hit. As long as he used the realm, he had an extra lifeline. When the realm burst forth, Qin immediately used the way to break it that he comprehended from Celestial Venerable Ling's notes. The way Celestial Venerable Ling broke it was via the path of creation. It was the basis of unchanging substance. Qin knew a lot about it already, so it was easy for him to comprehend the way to break Donghong's supreme consciousness realm. His sword light was activated in the realm. At that moment it flashed and countless runes flew out of the sword's tip and filled the realm. Donghua instantly felt his own realm freeze and reverse. His mind was blown. He was naturally cautious. When the Grand Emperor body went to the Great Void to exterminate the masters of creation there, he had this borrowed body guarding the entrance to it. When it died and had its consciousness trapped, he became furious. However, he knew that he wasn't Yun Yu or Ling's opponent, so he flew to the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens in a fury to vent his anger out by annihilating it. What he didn't expect was how Qin was guarding the place and how he forced him to use the realm that got him trapped. How similar was that moment to the moment in the Great Void? However, he had already suffered losses. Before the consciousness realm was fully frozen and reversed, he still had a shot. Even if his cultivation was limited then, as long as he could kill Qin before he finished the divine art he needed to break the realm, he could stop the realm from reversing. Both of them hollered at the same time. In the carriage, an unbelievably bright light burst forth like a giant ball of light, expanding outwards at a crazy rate. The water of the celestial river was forced out by it, and it formed a giant ball of water that was bursting outwards. Boom! Terrifying vibrations burst forth, and sword lights scampered around in the ball of light. They crisscrossed and one could faintly see the 33 heavens. Another large spear became a dragon vein as it rose up to break the 33 heavens. Qin third eye opened. Taichu's egg, Earth Count's horn, and the Grand Primordium Origin Stone were all activated at the same time. They became a dazzling divine light that faced the Grand Emperor's god spear. Thousands of Tao boomed in his god eyes, sending forth a Tao voice recited by thousands of gods simultaneously. Another even more terrifying rumble came. It caught up to the first light ball quickly as it swept down at an even faster speed. Finally, the light dissipated, and around a 500-mile stretch of the celestial river was missing. The heavenly dragon treasure carriage fell down from the sky. At the same time, a green bird flew up and expanded. It rotated around crazily in the air before suddenly rushing into the sky and disappearing. When the countless clouds in the sky dissipated, one could no longer see the bird. In the carriage, Qin fell down onto the floor. His chest exploded open, and his limbs blasted everywhere. When Yenna rushed into the carriage, she saw Qin scattered limbs. All that was left was his head, which rolled on the floor. The head stared as it stopped at Yenner's feet. "Master!" Yenner fell to the ground and extended her trembling hand to close Qin eyes. "Don't fool around, Yenner." Qin spat out blood which covered her hand. He barely used his consciousness and said, "Extinguish the lantern and return us to the ghost ship. Big brother can save me." Yenner was pleasantly surprised, and she hurriedly threw his head aside. She rushed out of the carriage to handle the lantern, but she was stunned. The lantern that Wei Suifeng forged was destroyed by the violent tremors. It was also daytime, not night, so the carriage hadn't returned to the ship. Cold sweat burst from Yenner's forehead as she shouted, "Go to Yudu! Fatty dragon, go to Yudu!" It was then that the dragon Qilin felt danger, and he immediately used his dragon rearing scripture. The heavenly dragons came to him and finally blocked the divine art impact that came from the carriage. He was severely injured too. The dragon Qilin heard it and immediately dispersed the scripture before chiding. The dragons dragged the broken carriage forth with all their might. Suddenly, a vibration came from the front of the carriage. It was then that the carriage entered Yudu. At the moment of entry, it disappeared again, and they appeared on the ghost ship in the next moment. Yena rushed out and said, "Emperor of Endless Clouds, please come and help." Wei Suifeng's expression was serious while on the ghost ship. He checked the damage to Qin Mu's head before immediately tapping his head with his fingers in rapid succession. He tried to use the great educational Heavenly Devil Scripture's 7 writings of creation to seal Qin Mu's soul and spirit embryo to prevent his soul from leaving. Soon, his body became a tiny shadow and entered Qin Mu's spirit embryo divine treasure in his eyebrows with a whoosh. The great educational Heavenly Devil Scriptures was the technique he got from Saint Woodcutter's scripture. The techniques the Heavenly Saint cultivated were techniques he passed down. The body becoming a black shadow was called the Phantom Illusion technique. Besides, there was also the mirror resemblance technique that allowed one's body to become like mirrors. Wei Suifeng came to Qin Mu's spirit embryo divine treasure and looked around. He was shocked. Qin Mu's spirit embryo divine treasure was way different from everyone else's. It was vast like the prehistoric universe. No wonder he's so powerful. He examined it and saw Qin Mu's spirit embryo divine treasure collapsing. The meteorology was in chaos and the geography inside was flipped. Everything was collapsing. The yin and yang for symbols, 5 elements and 7 stars were all in chaos.
Célestial d'IP technique.
Wei Suifeng gently hollered and sacrificed his own celestial palace to halt the attributes in chaos and quell the geography. He waved, and the meteorology was no longer in chaos as the stars returned to their places. He immediately split yin and yang, and settled the 5 elements to finally get Qin Mu's injuries to stop worsening. Suddenly he saw a giant tree in Qin Mu's spirit embryo divine treasure. It was an injury left behind by a giant spear piercing through. How powerful! Wei Suifeng was shocked. He only felt relieved after wiping away the underlying divine art in the spear injury. Qin Mu's spirit embryo and soul were tattered. The celestial palaces were all destroyed, and his spirit embryo and soul barely survived. Wei Suifeng frowned. Such injuries weren't things he could heal.
Qin Mu's consciousness wavered.
It was as weak as a shred of cloth. "Big brother, there's a jade bottle at Dragon Pie's neck. There's primordial liquid inside." Wei Suifeng immediately flew out of his divine treasure, and took the bottle of Flask World from the Dragon Chilin's neck. He entered and took out some primordial liquid that he put into a giant golden cauldron that he put Qin Mu's head in. It seems like great cult master Wei put in too much primordial liquid. The Dragon Chilin looked at the primordial liquid in the cauldron and thought, he probably doesn't know that it was used to water Mother Earth. It should be fine putting in so much, right? Qin Mu's neck began to absorb it, and it was like his spirit embryo divine treasure restarted a creation movement as the broken stars recovered. The broken Taiji diagram also regenerated itself rapidly. Day and night began to work again as broken mountains rose back up. Mist and rain fell as ancient god apparitions were revived. Qin Mu's spirit embryo and soul were rapidly recovering like his flesh. Wei Suifeng held the bottle of Flask World, and was ready to add primordial liquid into the cauldron at any moment. He saw the amount in it decreasing, and every time it did, he added more. He still felt that it wasn't enough, so he pinched Qin Mu's mouth and added more primordial liquid into his stomach. The Dragon Chilin was shocked, and he hastily reminded him, "Great cult master, we can't use too much of the primordial liquid. One can die from it. It's a treasure used to water the primordial tree." Wei Suifeng hammered his head to remind him, saying, "Are you the cult master, or is it me? I have lived longer than you. The salt I've eaten is more than the rice that you've eaten. I know what I'm doing." Before he finished, he saw Qin Mu's body grow, and soon it was way bigger than him. Wei Suifeng was shocked, and the Dragon Chilin said, "Great cult master, the salt you've eaten may not be more than the rice I've eaten, for my rice is spirit pills." Wei Suifeng hammered his head again and looked at Qin Mu nervously. The cauldron was big, but it wasn't big enough to hold Qin Mu's body. "Junior brother." Cold sweat burst from Wei Suifeng's forehead as he hollered, "Your new corporeal body is worse than your old one. You need to grind it. Quickly utilize your technique to prevent your body from being big but weak." Qin Mu was groggy. He opened his eyes to look at him before closing them again. Wei Suifeng frowned as he walked around the cauldron, saying, "There's no damage to his corporeal body. The injuries to his spirit embryo divine treasure and celestial palaces have also healed, so why isn't he waking up?" While he was thinking, Qin Mu's head expanded several feet again. It was as if he was a young master of creation. Wei Suifeng immediately removed the extra primordial liquid from the cauldron, though he couldn't do anything about the liquid he had pumped into Qin Mu's stomach. Besides, Qin Mu's injuries were too peculiar for him to accurately know where it was. Who did he fight to receive such heavy injuries? Wei Suifeng asked hurriedly. The dragon Qilin said. De Hong, likely a borrowed body of the Grand Emperor. It should be celestial venerable Hong of the later generations. The Grand Emperor. So, the most severe injury is to his consciousness. I'm not strong in that, so I can't heal it. Wei Suifeng tried to use his consciousness to touch Qin Mu's. Upon contact, Wei Suifeng immediately realized that Qin Mu's consciousness was in a chaotic state, and he immediately asked, "Brother, how do I heal injuries to the consciousness?" Qin Mu was barely conscious when he said, "Find Divine King Gong Yun. She owes me a favor." After he finished, a dragon blood treasure tree flew out of his eyebrows, and it landed beside the cauldron. The branches flew everywhere, and a melodious Tao voice came from it. Wei Suifeng felt relieved at the sight. Qin Mu's remaining consciousness flew out and was put into the tree. He was using its Tao rhythm to keep himself conscious. The Qin Mu in the cauldron stopped expanding too. The halos around him orbited him. There were around 2,000 halos, and each one of them had an ancient god apparition. They lived all around Qin Mu's corporeal body, and they refined the extra primordial liquid within together. Wei Suifeng saw it and was amazed. The dragon blood treasure tree that Qin Mu stole from Celestial Emperor allowed him to maintain his tiny bit of consciousness. Where can we find Divine King Gong Yun? Wei Suifeng inquired. His vital qi flew out and lifted Qin Mu from the cauldron before placing him under the tree. He was wearing nothing since his clothes were destroyed by De Hong. Wei Suifeng took off his robe, and the dragon Qilin gave it to Qin Mu for him to wear. Qin Mu sat there without moving as he continued utilizing the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique to protect his corporeal body. His consciousness wave came from the tree. 600,000 years ago, there was a split in the Dragon Han celestial heavens. Divine King Gong Yun probably wouldn't have missed such a big event. Yenner asked, "Why can't we go back to the moment A Cho attacked the celestial heavens?" Divine King Gong Yun had De Hong tied up then. It would be easy to find her. Wei Suifeng shook his head and used the ghost ship. Mist surrounded the ship as he said, "You guys would be there too. Two groups of you can't exist simultaneously unless one group disappears. You can't return to then." He was going to put Qin Mu and the tree on the carriage when rays of light shook. A giant canopy appeared on the carriage. It was the canopy that protected the Heaven Han celestial heavens until nighttime. It had returned to the ghost ship after. It withstood the battle between Qin Mu and De Hong. The canopy came crashing, and the carriage collapsed and fell apart. Wei Suifeng frowned as he waved his hands. Countless great Dao runes formed a giant circle that took in the tree and Qin Mu. He extended his hand to gently clap, and the ring landed at the back of Yenner's head. It was like a halo formed by an ancient god's blessing. Wei Suifeng called Lin Xiao and said, "Get me another lantern. Wait, a few lanterns. Just in case they get broken." A hen dragon came running with 9 lanterns in its beak. Wei Suifeng retrieved them, and the 6 heavenly dragons, the dragon Qilin and Yenner each took one. There was one on the tree as well, and he told the dragon Qilin, "We already became unchanging substances and can't leave the ship. I don't know whether it's 600,000 years ago outside, or whether it's dangerous out there. Be careful." He thought about it in silence and said, "If it's 600,000 years ago, go and see the Son of North deity and steal the glassy sky pagoda for self-protection." Wei Suifeng watched worriedly as the dragon Qilin, Yenner, and the others left the ghost ship. In this era, he had already used Celestial Venerable Ling's hairpin to transmigrate back to the Dragon Han era and become the leader of the Feathered Forest Guards. The assault on Celestial Empress and the transmigration of the Feathered Forest Guards happened then. The Dragon Han era then was weird. Dark undercurrents burst forth and triggered a shockingly vicious battle. The life and death battle of Celestial Emperor's reincarnation. Celestial Venerable Yun, Celestial Venerable Ling, Celestial Venerable Hao, Celestial Venerable Yu, and Celestial Venerable Hu led other experts to kill Celestial Emperor's reincarnation, and with Mistress Yuanmu as Ju Wuchen, take his corporeal body to end the rule of the ancient gods. Celestial Venerable Hong, Celestial Venerable Gong, God Emperor Lang Xian, Ancestral God King, Celestial Venerable Chang, and Celestial Venerable Yen of the later generations rose during this era, and they gradually took over the Heaven Alliance. It was the most vast, epic and complicated period of the Dragon Han era. Although Wei Suifeng didn't completely experience this part of history, only experiencing the first half, he couldn't help but shudder when he recalled the treachery that took place during the period. The dragon Qilin, Yenner, and the others walked out of the mist. The halo at the back of Yenner's head shook when she asked, "Fatty Dragon, what did he mean by that?" The dragon Qilin spoke softly. "Great Cult Master is asking us to be the D*net couple that stole the pagoda. It's reliable enough to ensure our safety. Yenner stared and stuttered. The D*Ned couple that Prince Yuming scolds every day is us? Possibly. The Dragon Qilin was also unsure. He mumbled. Cult Master Wei is unreliable. He likely couldn't send us to 600,000 years ago. Perhaps somebody else stole it instead. They exited the mist, and the Dragon Qilin became a strong youth with the head of a Qilin and a lantern. Yenner became a fat girl who also had a lantern. The heavenly dragons became humans with the heads of dragons that had their own lanterns too. Qin Mu sat in the halo behind Yenner's head and opened his eyes muddle-headedly. The lantern on the dragon blood treasure tree behind him glowed. At that moment, he saw that the primordial tree was larger than before. Its canopy almost covered the primordial realm, and countless leaves blocked the sky and covered the sun, moon, and stars. Qin Mu barely opened his third eye to look, and he saw that there were heavenly Daos covering the sky. Heaven Duke was covering the sky. The battle to kill Celestial Emperor has begun. A large revolution was quietly occurring in the primordial realm. It was the day that Celestial Emperor's reincarnation married Zhu Wuchen. Many guests were invited on this cheerful day. Celestial Emperor's reincarnation was a handsome young man named Chu Xiao that came from a prestigious and oppressively wealthy family. Chu Xiao always helped the needy. He had a high cultivation and was powerful too. His reputation was great amongst the younger generations of the primordial realm. His relationship with Zhu Wuchen was also a story that captured many people's attention in the primordial realm. Chu Xiao had a high stature among humans too. He had a lot of human and half-god friends alike. Zhu Wuchen was the #1 beauty of the primordial realm. She had countless admirers and was famous throughout. Even Celestial Venerable Yun, who was monogamous, had some illicit thoughts. It was just that the Empress of the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens was a feisty lady who was rumored to have beaten Celestial Venerable Yun up, until he gave up on the idea of having Zhu Wuchen as a concubine. Rumors also said that Son of Heaven Yin tried to seduce Zhu Wuchen, but he was beaten up by Celestial Venerable Hao, causing them to fall out. However, Celestial Venerable Hao didn't get her love either. Rumors also had it that God Emperor Lang Xian and Celestial Venerable Hao fought as well, like water and fire. They had a deep friendship, yet they split up because of her. Accordingly, God Emperor Lang Xian fought with Ancestral God King over Zhu Wuchen. Rumors stated that Heaven Duke reincarnated to become a normal person in the lower bound to fight for her. It was just that Ancestral God King was his son, and it was embarrassing for them to fight for the same lady, so he stopped. The fact that Chu Xiao was able to obtain her love over all of those heroes impressed the gods of the primordial realm. Hence, his story became an admired legend. On the day that Chu Xiao and Zhu Wuchen got married, love rivals like Celestial Emperor Yun, Celestial Venerable Hao, and God Emperor Lang Xian refused to attend the ceremony personally due to how they weren't the bridegrooms. Instead, they chose to send people with gifts. Nevertheless, Chu Xiao had many friends, like Celestial Venerable Yu and Ancestral God King, who attended the ceremony personally. On that day, guests filled the halls, which were filled with commotion. Just as Chu Xiao and Zhu Wuchen were about to get married, strange things started to happen. When they performed the ritual of marriage, Zhu Wuchen gently tapped the top of Chu Xiao's head with her palm. Her ruins of divine art became a large abyss that was sent into his head. Little lover, you have such a day too. Zhu Wuchen laughed on the other side. At the same time, the guests that were smiling just before suddenly rose up and attacked Chu Xiao. The knife lights and sword shadows instantly turned the wedding hall into a death-filled scene of carnage. Chu Xiao instantly realized that he had been tricked. Despite being tricked by Zhu Wuchen, he was still Celestial Emperor's reincarnation, and his primordial spirit was inside the body. This primordial spirit only had 2 souls, but it was the most powerful in the world. He was wearing a large red robe, and with a shake of his sleeves, countless guests that attacked him fell into his sleeves. He shook his sleeves and fresh blood and broken bones spilled out of them. There was so much blood that it formed a river. At the same time, Celestial Venerable Yu and Ancestral God King flanked him. Celestial Venerable Yu held a peach flower that she blew on. The petals withered and fell down. Instantly, Chu Xiao's body fell apart like said petals. Celestial Venerable Yu. Chu Xiao hollered as he forced his limbs back to reconnect them to his body. However, Ancestral God King covered his head with a great overarching dome. The first generation of the body of paradise was great at combat, for they had Heaven Duke's bloodline. In the dome, 49 heavenly Daos restricted Celestial Emperor's primordial spirit, attempting to trap it in the body. Chu Xiao's hair scattered. He was still as brave as usual. Even though Celestial Emperor's primordial spirit was trapped, Ancestral God King and Celestial Venerable, you couldn't fight against it. In the first face-off, he heavily injured Celestial Venerable Yu and Ancestral God King before hitting Ju Wuchen until she flew up. Boom! The marriage hall burst open and Chu Xiao looked out. Many figures stood outside, causing Chu Xiao's heart to sink. He recognized Celestial Venerable Yun, Celestial Venerable Hao, Celestial Venerable Ling, God Emperor Lang Xian, Celestial Venerable Hua, and Son of Heaven Yin. Such powerful beings were hiding there. Chu Xiao's eyes jumped as his gaze fell on Celestial Venerable Hao and God Emperor Lang Xian. Sorrow filled his eyes as he laughed. Is this a rebellion? There's Heaven Duke above, Mother Earth below, and Great Sun Sovereign monitoring the heavens. Earth Count is watching this too. Earth Count won't be coming. A horned girl appeared and said plainly, Uncle, Earth Count still hates you. Chu Xiao's gaze fell on the girl as he clenched his teeth and said, Su, I brought you up. She was Celestial Venerable Su of the later generations. She plainly said, Yes, I remember all that you have taught me. I'll replace Earth Count, but I also want to replace you. Heaven Duke won't be coming either. Celestial Venerable Hao leisurely said, Father, Mother Earth also won't appear. In reality, she has had enough of you. In fact, she was quite willing to help us cover the primordial realm. Chu Xiao looked up. The sky was covered by the primordial tree's canopy. The stars couldn't be seen, and the great sun's sunlight couldn't reach them either. You little b*** stars. My primordial spirit is too strong for you lot. You lot alone. Chu Xiao laughed, but before he could finish, the masses came to kill him. On that day, Celestial Venerable Mu flipped open history, and it was dripping with blood. Then, Qin Mu used the Peachwood hairpin to summon the ghost ship on the surging river to recreate history, and reeling the Celestial River. This shocked Son of Heaven Yin, for he witnessed it. He said a legendary quote, Who is bringing up the old parts of history? The history of the Dragon Han era was exterminated because, in it, the old parts were filled with plotting and blood. On that day, Celestial Emperor fell. He was the first ancient god in history, the invincible being who ended the chaotic situation of the masters of creation killing each other. He ruled the universe, yet he silently died at the hands of half-god and human celestial venerables. At one point he had a chance to escape since he was so powerful. Even if everyone worked together, it would be hard to keep him there. Yet, when he was trying to escape by killing everyone there, he encountered an extremely strong consciousness that hit him and forced him back. Gong Yun. Chu Xiao felt groggy, and he was blocked by Celestial Venerable Yun, Celestial Venerable Hao, and the others again. That was when he lost the chance to live. Gong Yun It's you. Chu Xiao laughed as he looked at Ju Wuchen, who was coming to kill him, feeling ridiculed. Who would have thought that it would be two ladies he once loved that ended up killing him? Gong Yun didn't show up. Instead, she looked at the scene coldly, watching how the man who had betrayed her would die. Chu Xiao almost went insane as he deployed a divine art stronger than all of the Emperor's throne beings. Despite being a reincarnation, he was still more powerful than everyone in a one-on-one. He broke through again and hollered, Mother Earth, save me quickly. I'll promise you anything. The verdant primordial tree's branches shook. Mother Earth was surrounded by ancient gods born from the primordial realm. They were primarily phoenixes, divine dragons, and Qilins. They looked at Mother Earth, who pretended not to hear him as she watched the scene coldly. A smile emerged on her face as she said to the phoenix ancient gods beside her, When I gained sentience from the primordial tree then, it was Celestial Emperor who pulled me up. I was naked and embarrassed then, for I was just born. Her face was as cold as frost as she said, Yet when the celestial heavens was built, he tried to take my primordial realm. Chu Xiao was desperate, and he tried to break out of the primordial tree's deadlock by rushing towards the sky. Behind him were the masses coming to kill him. Great Sun Sovereign, Chu Xiao called out. Great Sun Sovereign, save me quickly. Yet his voice couldn't break through the primordial tree's canopy. Earth Count. I know you can see this. Chu Xiao panicked and hollered. I know that I was wrong. Please, on account of our old friendship, Dao friend. Silence surrounded Yudu. Chu Xiao fought with the others while walking. He went to the celestial river to try and rush towards the celestial heavens. The water of the celestial river was crimson from the blood of the people he killed. Whoosh! Chu Xiao dodged attack after attack. He then saw a youth with the head of a Qilin and a fat girl standing on the celestial river. There were 6 gods with the heads of dragons there too. They were looking towards him with lanterns. Chu Xiao opened his mouth. He faintly saw a tree behind the halo of the fat girl. A youth sat beneath it. Celestial Venerable Mu. He couldn't help but lose concentration. Boom! Celestial Venerable Yuan unleashed the purple heaven's blue skies technique to bring him down. Chu Xiao fell into the celestial river before rushing out of it. Figures surrounded him to trap him. Far away, Qin Mu watched the scene while sitting under the tree on the halo behind Yenner's head. He was filled with gratitude. The celestial river collapsed in two, and a giant figure moved back and forth like lightning. All sorts of divine arts were used which impressed people. During the middle part of the Dragon Han era, the power of paths, skills, and divine arts was already impressive. The strong practitioners who entered the path gathered there to kill for the sake of the future of half-gods and post-celestial lifeforms. Qin Mu's blood boiled. He wanted to stand up and join the fight, yet his consciousness was scattered. He could only watch them from a faraway place. Chu Xiao escaped and killed his way out. Yet, suddenly another consciousness wave forced him back. Qin Mu immediately noticed it and gathered his remaining consciousness to say, "Yenna, Divine King Donghua is nearby." Yenner was pleasantly surprised as she looked around. Qin Mu struggled to raise his palm and take out the only Grand Primordium Divine Stone that he got from the Blood Rust Zone. Dragon Pai used this. The Grand Primordium Divine Stone flew out. The Dragon Qilin took it and put it at the heart of his brows. Qin Mu imparted to him the ways to use the stone to strengthen himself. The Dragon Qilin had learned Shu Jun's 3 enclosures higher knowledge, as well as the 3 primordial spirit undying God consciousness, so he was adept in it. He used the Grand Primordium Divine Stone to allow his consciousness to burst forth. He visualized the 3 enclosures higher knowledge. Stars of the Purple Forbidden Enclosure, Supreme Palace Enclosure, and Heavenly Market Enclosure appeared above the celestial river. At that moment, torrenting consciousness came in the form of a female voice.
Divine King Shu Yun.
Qin Mu huffed while being under the tree. He used his remaining consciousness to touch Gongyun's consciousness. "Do you remember the person who brought you out of the ancestral court?" The consciousness flew into Yenner's halo and went around in his body before creating an apparition of Divine King Donghua in his head. She said, "The Grand Emperor injured you, right? The one who blocked Donghua outside of the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens was you, right? You heavily injured him then. I was late and I only found his corpse." Qin Mu was shocked. Donghua died. I'm not sure whether it was Heaven Duke or Mother Earth who did it, but his consciousness was annihilated. He may be dead, but he's not suppressed. His consciousness will be projected down from the ultimate void and be resurrected. It's just that Donghua's memory will be gone. The one who struck was powerful. Divine King Donghua quickly said, "I'll naturally repay the favor. It's just that Tai Chu isn't dead yet. I'll find you after I help them get rid of Tai Chu." Gongyun's consciousness left. "Be careful of the Grand Emperor. He's immortal unless the consciousness imprint in the ultimate void is destroyed. I sense him nearby." Cold sweat broke out on Qin Mu's forehead. During the battle with Donghua, he was heavily injured and he almost died. Donghua was stuck in the reverse supreme consciousness realm and had to leave after being injured. However, Qin Mu's last strike was with his third eye. It had terrifying power, and it hit the reverse supreme consciousness realm into his body. Donghua probably knew his identity was exposed then. Adding to how he was tricked, he probably gave up on the Donghua corporeal body. "Yenner, let's wait for them at the celestial heavens," Qin Mu said. Yenner, the Dragon Qilin, and the 6 heavenly dragons immediately went straight for the celestial heavens, while carrying the lanterns on the celestial river. The battle became more brutal. When they went around the battlefield, Qin Mu saw Son of Heaven Yi not striking out directly. Instead, he guarded outside, ready to trap Celestial Emperor's soul. The ancient Celestial Emperor got Celestial Venerable Hao and Son of Heaven Yi to work together to assassinate Celestial Venerable Yu. Who knew the same would happen to him?
Qin Mu smiled.
The southern heavenly gate grew closer, and Qin Mu grew more anxious. At the same time, it rained and made Yenner and the others red. The water fell into the celestial river, and it became red too, like a bleeding celestial river. Qin Mu's heart fluttered. Celestial Emperor is dead. He looked back and saw Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Hao rushing towards the celestial heavens. Celestial Venerable Yun's appearance changed at that moment to become Celestial Venerable Hao's. They were both in the Emperor's throne realm, and they flew above Qin Mu, Yenner, and the others as they rapidly moved together towards the numinous sky hall of the celestial heavens. Who was the first to enter Celestial Emperor's corporeal body? Qin Mu was so excited that his consciousness almost got snuffed out. Who took Celestial Emperor's corporeal body after his death was a contentious historical issue. Few knew the secret. Suddenly, Qin Mu saw a figure moving in the celestial heavens. He was ahead of even Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Hao. Could it be the Grand Emperor? Qin Mu's heart shuddered. He knew that the 10 Celestial Venerables of the later generation had 11 people. One of the Grand Emperor's reincarnated bodies became a celestial venerable in the higher echelons of the Heaven Alliance. He entered Celestial Emperor's corporeal body near the end of the High Emperor era, and killed Celestial Venerable Ling with it. Could the person rushing towards the celestial heavens be Yun? And how be the Grand Emperor's reincarnation? At the same time, Qin Mu saw Divine King Gongyun. She was fast behind Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable. How? Faster than Qin Mu and the others at rushing into the celestial heavens. Her consciousness burst forth, and the gods of the celestial heavens who encountered her fell into her consciousness illusion. No one could escape. Even the great Sun Sovereign who charged forward with star gods fell for it. They knew not where they were. Her appearance caused chaos in the celestial heavens, but when she used her consciousness, the chaos ended. It was as if no one could see her heading straight for the Jade Capital and numinous Sky Hall. It was clear that she wanted the ancient celestial emperor's corporeal body too. Gongyun was a primordial divine king, so for now Celestial Venerable Yun and the others are no match for her. If they enter the numinous Sky Hall, the one most likely to gain control of Celestial Emperor's corporeal body is her. However, such a contest would probably lead them to encounter another of Celestial Emperor's souls, right? Qin Mu thought quickly. The other soul of Celestial Emperor probably reincarnated too, and that person was likely Celestial Venerable Shao of the later generations. Will Shao be in the celestial heavens? There are many places to hide. Even though Mistress Yuanmu became Ju Wuqian, she must covet Celestial Emperor's corporeal body too. Maybe even Celestial Empress, who she killed via scheming, became another Celestial Venerable that's hiding in the celestial heavens in preparation to steal Celestial Emperor's body. Qin Mu huffed and puffed. He felt dizzy. He was too naive in his thinking in the past. It appeared that the battle for the Emperor was more complex than he believed. The 10 Celestial Venerables kept causing each other trouble, and restraining one another during the Eternal Peace era. They control the fake Celestial Emperor corporeal body together. Such a tradition must have formed during the latter half of the Dragon Han era. He couldn't see the battle for Celestial Emperor's corporeal body in the numinous Sky Hall, which disappointed him, but that part of history was set. He was in great anticipation of the big change coming to the Dragon Han celestial heavens. After Celestial Emperor's death, power would be split again. To secure the 4 deities of the ancient gods, they would allow them to split from the celestial heavens and go back to their ancestral lands. The celestial heavens would continue to rise and leave the primordial realm, so people would no longer be able to find the exact location of the ancestral court. Mother Earth would also grow stronger due to the lack of restraint from the celestial heavens. She wouldn't be able to hold back her ambition during the High Emperor era, and would help her son make the North High Emperor celestial heavens, which he was the emperor of. These were the consequences of the battle today. Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Hao had already entered the numinous Sky Hall after the Grand Emperor's reincarnation. At the moment, Divine King Gongyun was outside the hall too. Suddenly, a giant palm came, striking outside from the inside of the hall. Qin Mu saw the palm and felt that it could control the sky, the earth and countless worlds. This palm came from the inside of the numinous Sky Hall, which was far from him, but he still felt pressured. It was as if thousands of heaven and earth Daos were in the control of this hand. The hand of Celestial Emperor. It was aimed at Divine King Gongyun, which caught her off guard. This unrestrained female Divine King of the primordial era, wife of the Grand Emperor, was blown to pieces immediately. Qin Mu almost chewed through his bronze teeth. He was there to find Divine King Gongyun so she could heal his consciousness injuries. Yet, unexpectedly, a Celestial Venerable controlled Celestial Emperor's corporeal body and killed Gongyun with one hit. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead. It can't be the Grand Emperor. Celestial Emperor also loved Gongyun, and he would allow her body to remain intact. Then who did this? Celestial Venerable Yun? Celestial Venerable Hao? Mistress Yuanmu. Fresh blood dripped from Celestial Emperor's hand as it was retracted. Hollering came from the numinous Sky Hall. It likely came from the fighting of the Celestial Venerables inside, who were attempting to control Celestial Emperor's corporeal body. The one-hit kill on Gongyun, which illustrated the power of the corporeal body, made them more determined to obtain it. The death of Divine King Gongyun caused the gods of the celestial heavens controlled by her via her illusion to wake up. The great Sun Sovereign gathered the star gods to search around as he hollered, "Pay attention, you lot. There might still be more rebels. Release the heavenly roaring dogs." Countless gods released their chains as thin black dogs leaped down from the clouds to Divine King Gongyun's broken corpse to sniff it. Soon, many more flew into the sky to search around. Chaos dominated the celestial heavens. At the same time, Ancestral God King, Celestial Venerable Yu, Celestial Venerable Ling, God Emperor Lang Xian, and the others rushed for the numinous Sky Hall, leaving behind the Great Sun Sovereign who was chasing them. Yener the Dragon Qilin, and the others had snuck into the celestial heavens. They shuddered upon seeing how Divine King Gongyun was killed in one hit from Celestial Emperor's palm. Yener said while trembling, "Young master, what do we do now?"
Qin Mu groaned.
He was about to speak when a palace maid approached them. She was in a daze when she came to Yener and said to the halo behind her, "My corporeal body is dead. The Great Sun Sovereign intends to find me and kill me off entirely." Yener and the Dragon Qilin were shocked and they asked, "Your Divine King Gongyun?" That palace maid was delicate. It was just that her consciousness was in a mess, so it was hard to borrow her body to live, which made her seem stiff and in a lull. She said robotically, "I'm not the Great Sun Sovereign's match. I can't defend against the siege of those ancient gods. Protect me, Celestial Venerable Mu." The Dragon Qilin almost jumped as he shouted, "How can Master save you when he can barely protect himself?" The palace maid replied, "Celestial Venerable Mu, your injury is worse than mine. It isn't hard to recover my consciousness, but only I can heal your consciousness injury." Qin Mu's consciousness said, "Take her away." The Dragon Qilin hurriedly asked, "To where, Cult Master?" "The Black Tortoise Celestial Palace of North Deity."
Qin Mu sighed.
"We don't know the result of the battle for Celestial Emperor's corporeal body, and even if we did, they would still find people to search for Gongyun. Given how many heavenly roaring dogs the Great Sun Sovereign has, it would be hard to avoid him. Thus, we can only be protected if we have that treasure, the Glassy Sky Pagoda, now."
Yener was excited.
The Dragon Qilin glanced at her and said, "Keep quiet, just in case the Great Sun Sovereign finds us." Yener hurriedly lowered her voice, not daring to cheer. "I've wanted to see this legendary #1 treasure for a long time. That D*Ned couple that stole the treasure." The Dragon Qilin gave a cold hump and said grudgingly, "Is us." Yener cheered quietly. She was so excited that she trembled. "We will become legends of the Dragon Han era. The god thief worshipped by many. Our legend will go on even after 600,000 years." The Dragon Qilin glanced at her and said, "Look at you. We'll be sent to jail before we reach the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace if you continue on like this. We must be calm." Yener rubbed against his forehead and giggled. "I never did something so exciting when I followed Celestial Venerable Yu. You know a lot, Fatty Dragon, even things like these." "That's to be expected." The Dragon Qilin wanted to raise his tail, but he realized that he had become a human with no tail, which vexed him. "Cult Master would take me with him when he returned to the village." Grandpa Cripple, the #1 god thief, was at the village. When he guided Cult Master, he gazed deeply and said, "I learned some too." Yener was fully impressed as she looked at the little stars inside his eye. The Dragon Qilin was largely satisfied, though he was still somewhat displeased. "Unfortunately, I don't have my tail to lift up and swing. I would have looked awesome." Many heavenly roaring dogs sniffed the area to find Divine King Gongyun and her accomplices. The Great Sun Sovereign's voice would periodically be heard. "That female thief is a divine king from the prehistoric era. She's skilled in consciousness and won't die unless her consciousness is eliminated. We must find it." Yener and the Dragon Qilin brought the palace maid with them. Gongyun borrowed the maid's body to live. Her consciousness injury was serious enough to cause her to rely on the both of them. However, she always felt that the Dragon Qilin and Yener were unreliable when she looked at them. It was great that they had 6 heavenly dragons with them. The heavenly dragons contained East Deity Qinglong's bloodline, so when the dogs smelled it, they wouldn't dare to approach. The dogs were of a peculiar breed, but they paled in comparison to East Deity Qinglong. When the heavenly dragons became humans and walked together, their scent was so dense that they could suppress the dogs. They ran through half of the celestial heavens amidst the chaos and reached North Deity Xianwu's celestial palace. The Dragon Qilin went forward and awakened the tortoise gods at the door. They were so lazy that they were petrified. Being awakened displeased them and they asked lazily, "What are you here for?" "We are East Deity and South Deity's descendants, and we are here to visit Prince Yuming," the Dragon Qilin said. The tortoise gods saw how they looked like experts. Some of them were heavenly dragons, and there was a dragon sparrow and a Dragon Qilin, which made them resemble East Deity's descendants. Thus they hastily said, "So you're all the 2 deities' descendants. Please wait while I report your visit." Afterward, one of the tortoise gods turned around to enter the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. Prince Yuming heard it and said peculiarly, "East Deity Qinglong is so promiscuous that he probably has more than 1 million sons. Even the hen dragon is rumored to have his blood." I'm not sure which chicken he did it with. We can ignore his descendants, but South deity is clean. I've never heard of her having any descendants. Now that her princess is here, we have to see her. That god reminded him. Prince, those who came to befriend you before did so to fool you in order to obtain our treasures. These people are likely trying to do the same. Prince Yuming smiled and said, Nonsense. Those who tried to obtain the treasures are Celestial Venerable Hao, God Emperor Lang Xian, and Son of Heaven Yin. I've already listened to my parents to avoid them. In contrast, the Princess of South Deity can't be so despicable. That god hesitated and said, Should I tell both masters? I'm not a kid. Why should you tell them about me making a friend? Prince Yuming continued. Besides, North Deity isn't here. They went to find West Deity, South Deity, and East Deity. I don't know when they'll be back. Should I let them wait outside? If people heard about that, wouldn't I be laughed at for my lack of manners? Invite them in. That god had no choice but to exit the palace and invite the dragon Qilin and Yenner inside. Our prince invites you in. The gang entered the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. Unsurprisingly, it was filled with treasures and jewelry. A luxurious aura filled the air, just like treasures filled the palace. North Deity's residence really is extravagant. The dragon Qilin couldn't help but praise it. The tortoise led the way while saying, Our master is a saint born from the Celestial River, worshipped by many with sacrifices. The Celestial River is our master's, so all sorts of treasures of the Celestial River are also our master's. Thus, he's naturally wealthy. Gong Yun coldly laughed. Deceiving the world with theft. The tortoise glanced at her and saw how the palace maid was in a lull. He didn't take it to heart though, for he assumed her to be a palace maid of the South Deity Palace. Everyone claimed that the four deities were ancient gods born from nature, which was what they claimed to be. Yet Gong Yun knew everything about their origins. West Deity White Tiger was an ancient god born from collective sacrifice by Gong Yun's new Xian clan. The other three deities had their own origins too. North Deity Xian Wu was an ancient god born from sacrifice from the Juyu clan. Deity Wu had some relation to Gong Yun too. The Yuan Juyu clan meant water of the north. Juyu clan also meant masters of creation who lived beside the northern waters. The Juyu clan originally lived beside the northern part of the Celestial River, and they created the Black Tortoise ancient gods via sacrifice. They were split into two. One was Deity Xian while the other was Deity Wu. This was because Gong Yun was the Grand Emperor's wife and the chief of the new Xian clan. Women were superior in the new Xian clan. When Gong Yun married the Grand Emperor, her status in the Juyu clan was even higher. She was equal to the Grand Emperor. So the Juyu clan sacrificed to create two ancient gods, Deity Xian and Deity Wu. Their sacrifice was also a representation of their beautiful wish. The wish that the Grand Emperor and Gong Yun would be a perfect couple like the ancient gods of their imagination, as if they were one. However, reality was cruel. North Deity was able to be rich due to raiding the Juyu clan when the great calamity of the Masters of Creation came. Suddenly, loud laughter came as a large and handsome lad walked towards them. It was Prince Yuming. The Prince Yuming of then didn't look that destitute. He looked strong and handsome with a strong aura and dragon mustaches. It was just that his clothes were too extravagant. He wore a black robe with images of flowers and snakes made from golden threads. The most eye-catching thing was the scattered treasure he had hung around his body. First, he had 24 pearls around his waist, which were 24 heavens. On his arms were bracelets made from pearls, 4 to 5 of them on each. 3 to 4 jade pendants were on his wrists, while a necklace was on his neck. The necklace had an unknown treasure. As for his shoes, they gave off clouds. When he walked, the clouds would lift him up so that he hovered. The dragon Qilin thought, This Prince Yuming is like a traveling blacksmith. He could be a good merchant. Yenner saw him and said, I pay my respects, brother. The dragon Qilin and the 6 heavenly dragons also said, Brother. Prince Yuming anxiously returned the greeting. We don't go around often, so I'm quite rusty with my brothers and sisters. Please forgive me. Divine King Gong Yun covered his thoughts with consciousness, so that he couldn't see Qin Mu behind Yenner's halo. Thus, he failed to notice Celestial Venerable Mu under a dragon blood treasure tree. The dragon Qilin said something shocking. Brother, do you know that the celestial heavens is about to be split? Prince Yuming was shocked, and he hastily covered his mouth before looking around and whispering, You can die from saying that. Don't spout nonsense. Suddenly, gods reported, The deity is back. Prince Yuming hurriedly went to receive them, excusing himself by saying, Please stay here first, I'll be back soon. Deity Xian and Deity Wu sat down, and Prince Yuming received them. Deity Xian and Deity Wu looked at one another and said, Don't go out now, the celestial heavens is going to be split. Prince Yuming had a flash of inspiration as he recalled the Dragon Qilan's words and said, I knew that. Deity Xian and Deity Wu felt pleased. It appears that our silly son is enlightened enough to see the situation in the celestial heavens.